Hello everyone. Welcome to another part of our What If Deku Was Iron Man story. If you enjoy the video, please like and subscribe. It really helps me keep being motivated to make more. I did not write the story. The writer is mrkage. Please support them. Now let's dive in. There was something soothing about flying through the sky at night. Maybe it was lack of sun or lot less noise around. Izuku didn't really know, but he felt like he could fly all night long, just for the sake of it. Maybe after his internship he could somehow do it? Thought for later. He peeked over his shoulder and saw Eraserhead, flying few meters behind him. Aizawa-san got the hang out of controlling the Night Raven surprisingly fast. Izuku knew the teacher wouldn't admit it, but he was quite sure that man was enjoying his new gear. It was his second day of internship with Eraserhead and he couldn't hold back a grin from being on his lips. He was finally doing a hero job, even if it was just for a few days. It left him overjoyed. First one would be absolutely dull if not for a police chase. Officers were trying to get the motorcyclist to stop, but the guy only speed up more. Having approval from Aizawa-san, Izuku swooped down from the skies and caught the biker. The most hilarious part, in his opinion, was that the guy had headphones on and didn't hear the siren. Other than that, he had to take many quizzes Eraser made him for him. They ranged from a hero law, through the numerous protocols, to first aid. He briefly wondered why all examples had cats in them, but shrugged it off as man's kink. During the day Aizawa-san drove him to the bone with sparring session. Izuku had to admit that Eraser was ruthless opponent, who fought dirty, if necessary. But he gladly took challenge and gave his all. Which resulted in him seeing floor more times than he did during his all life. Eraser asked him if he could do something about his capture gear, to make it usable, because Night Raven couldn't really be combined with a scarf. After quick thinking, he modified bracers to hold a roll of the material and shoot it out when needed. Aizawa-san seemed pleased with it, testing it for an hour before their night patrol. While flying high in the air near harbor, they'd found some kind of deal being made between two groups, probably drugs. Stopping on building, that was a safe distance away, they observed them for a minute. Thoughts, kid? Aizawa-san asked. Izuku hummed and made his camera zoom in. 8 people, 4 with guns. How about I provide the distraction? During this you can take out 2 gunners and I'll blast other 2. Then we see what they will do. Izuku proposed, turning to the hero. Eraser quirked his brow. You want to run a distraction? You realize that there is a possibility that they're going to shoot you right off the bat? Man sounded strangely amused at the thought. He shrugged lightly and stood up. Their caliber won't pierce through my armor. Look at him, showing off his toy. Alan commented cheekily. Ignoring the AI, Izuku flew up. Making a circle around the dealers, drawing their attention, he landed on the ground. Whoosh. How's the business going? Answer came in form of guns pointed at him. The hands of one guy changed their shape to the grotesque-looking claws. Wow, no need to be hostile. I just wanted to catch some fishes, he said, throwing up his arms. Before they could do anything, Aizawa-san swooped down from the sky, kicking the gunner on the head. Quickly deploying his capture gear, he wrapped the material around another's face and pulled hard, making Thug fall on the ground. During this, Izuku fired low-powered blast, downing 2 other gunners. Surrender now. Police is on their way. Eraser ordered with his usual tired voice, but was ready a potential fight. The only woman here came forward and let out a scream. But soon stopped, looking utterly bewildered. So her quirk must be focused around her voice, like present mix. The guy, whose hands changed back to their natural shape, rushed at Izuku and punched him in the helmet. Hit staggered him slightly, but otherwise he was fine. As for the man, he was gripping his palm, hissing quietly. Yeah, punching hard metal isn't exactly advised, he said, before delivering his own punch to Thug's temple. Then he quickly grabbed him and threw over his shoulder, serving the painful landing on the concrete. Turning around, Izuku saw Eraser neutralizing others, moving fluidly from one to other. One of the dealers tried to run away. Shoot out Ebola, he commended, locking target on the man. Side of his left thigh opened and a weapon shoot out, tangling around dealer's legs, causing him to fall on the ground. After police came in, they gave the report of the things that occurred to the officer. Turns out the deal involved the drug called Trigger, that caused person's quirk to grow stronger over short period of time. Izuku remembered reading that it was used by Yakuza before All Might came into the play. Okay, looks like it's all. Officer said, gazing at his notepad. Oh, wait, one more thing. Woman turned to Izuku. Even as an intern you took the part in the fight, so I need your name. She means your code name, kid. Aizawa-san added, looking at him. Smiling lightly, he stated. Iron Man, write it in katakana, please. Officer seemed to be satisfied by it. When police drove away, he turned to Eraser with uneasy expression. Is it a good name? Hiro glanced at him and pulled his goggles on his eyes. Don't ask me. I'm not cut for the things like this. Wings popped out and man rose into the skies. Releasing a sigh, Izuku followed Aizawa-san. Night was still young. Those are really adorable, you know? Midnight said, teasing smirk on her lips. Momo looked at her night table and smiled softly. 3 matryoshkas stood there, representing her and her crushes. Soon-to-be girlfriend and boyfriend. At least she hoped that would happen. With her mistress teaching and many reassurances, she was prepared to confess. Maybe. Get ready, we're going out for a patrol. Heroine informed, securing her whip. Walking through the streets of Hosu, Momo saw that Midnight and many others heroes were slightly tense. Were they afraid of Stain? It was over a week since his last attack. Being honest with herself, she wished to not have a run with a man. Just the stories itself about the hero killer and his body count were enough to scare her off. If she remembered correctly, only 3 heroes survived the run with him, but it led to the end of their carriers. She hoped that Izuku and Mei would be able to help Ingenium. Correction. She was sure of it. They showed her plans for the prosthetic. She was really impressed by it. It could save so many people from living on the wheelchair or being bedridden. Momo remembered that baby-making duo weren't only trying to invent things for hero industry. They wanted to support whole society. It was admirable, and she would be lying if she said she didn't want to be a part of it. She could support them with her knowledge and quirk. Although Izuku was strongly against her being a living factory, she would find a way to coax him into it. Maybe by using one of the tricks her mistress taught her. Even if she would be utterly embarrassed afterwards. Looking up she saw a drone, which flew hastily above the streets. Then next one. Soon 3 more followed. That was unusual, past the last few days, she never witnessed them swarming. Midnight, look at this. Momo said to the heroine, pointing at the new group of drones. All while ignoring woman grumbling about calling her mistress. Out of nowhere the siren sounded from behind and 2 fire tracks speed past them. Midnight was automatically on the move, contacting with authorities to get any kind of information. Creati, can you make us something to travel faster? Heroine questioned hastily, not even looking at her. She ran through the mental list of vehicles she could create. Would an electric scooter do? Yes. Just make it quick. Stretching the front of her costume, the light of her quirk shone brightly and the handle of the vehicle popped out, soon to be followed by the rest. Heroine grabbed it from her and immediately hopped onto it, speeding down the street. Making another one for her, she followed her mistress. What is happening? Momo questioned, catching up to Midnight. There's an outgoing attack at the crossroad. Everything is on fire, because a cistern exploded. Woman told her, zipping through the traffic. Not even a minute later they saw a giant wall of flames. Many fire tracks were at the place, water pouring from the hoses in the seemingly endless streams, but from the looks of it nothing happened. Before she could hear any instructions, a person was thrown out of the fire. A hero she saw a few times during patrols. His uniform was in tatters and his arms were twisted at the strange angles. Momo immediately ran to him and checked his vitals. He had a pulse and was breathing with difficulty. Looking around, she caught the sight of the ambulance. Medic, she shouted, trying to gain attention. A terrifying roar could be heard from the curtain of flames. Snapping her gaze to it, she saw a huge humanoid being with almost pitch-black skin and exposed brain. Was this a Nomu? She listened her classmates describing the creature at the USJ and how it viciously fought All Might. Why was there another one of those monsters? Was League of Villains behind this? Every present hero begun attacking the Nomu, trying to drive Beast away from people and firefighters. But creature wasn't even fazed by their attempts and begun swinging widely. Just if the things couldn't get worse, from the smoke showed up another Nomu. This one had wings and yellow skin. It picked down on unsuspecting hero. Thinking fast, Momo ran to the man and tackled him on the ground, barely avoiding huge talons. Hero looked at her. Sorry for that. Did you see a kid in armor similar to the knight? He asked, glancing around. She furrowed her brows at that. Ida-san had a suit like that. Did he get lost due to the commotion? This was unlike him. Are you asking about Tenya Ida? She questioned, an uneasy feeling in her stomach. Yes, him. Can you please find him? He's an intern of mine, but I've lost a sight of him. Man pleaded her. I'll do my best, she replied, before standing up and running away from the Nomus. Where could she even start? Hosu wasn't small. But seeing as a hero was close, then Ida-san couldn't be that far away. Why would he ditch his internship? Was there another accident? But then the hero wouldn't be here. She thought hard, what could be so much more important than Nomu attack? What could be here to sway her classmate away from the rescue? Stain. That was the only thing her mind supplied her. Hero killer was in the city. The city Ida-san chose to intern in. The city where his brother was attacked by Stain and crippled for life. No. Her classmate wouldn't go after such dangerous criminal by himself. He wasn't that stupid. A drone flew above her. Momo stopped in her tracks and followed it with her gaze. There was about 20 of those, hovering somewhere near. Something told her to go there, so she did. Sprinting as fast as she could, she ran into the alley. She gasped loudly. Ida-san was laying on the ground, a small pool of blood beneath him. Standing next to her classmate, with a risen sword, was a man wearing red scarf and black suit, which had many knives in the holsters. The hero killer, who was about to slay the teen. She made a throwing motion with her hand, aiming at the Stain, all while creating a tennis ball. Object flew at the villain, who just must have caught a sight of her and jumped away. Running closer and pulling a staff of her arm, she positioned herself between hero killer and her downed classmate. Just then she realized that another person was here. A hero in brown robe with wound on his shoulder. Another fake? Stain asked in hoarse voice, that made her shiver. His gaze was focused on her. Yaoyorozu-san? Why are you here? Ida-san shouted a question. Peeking at him for just a second, she returned her gaze to the villain. The hero you're interning with told me to find you. I barely made it in time. Go away. This doesn't concern you. Teen pleaded loudly. Momo weighed her options. If it was just Ida-san, she could take him and run away. Maybe. But with another hero downed here, she couldn't proceed with this plan. Can't do. Until help arrives, I'll keep you two safe. It's reckless. Go away from here. Her classmate ordered. What drives you to protect those two fakes? Stain questioned, taking a position to attack. She smiled nervously. The images of Izuku, when he shared his dream with her, and Mei, when she was telling her of her grandpa, flashed between her eyes. Because that's what hero does, she replied. Hero killer smirked widely. Good. You may be worth keeping around. With that he ran at her with surprising speed and swung his katana at her. Timing the block, she twisted her staff and hit the tip of the blade, directing it away from her. A spiked boot flew towards her, forcing her to jump away. Before she could even think of what to do next, Hero Killer was already at her with his sword. Using her quirk, she created a metal beam from her chest that hit Stain in the stomach. Villain rolled away and immediately jumped back up, throwing a knife at her. Shooting it down with well-timed strike, she saw Stain running at her again. Momo extended her hand, stun gun popping out from her palm. She pulled a trigger, but missed due to villain jumping up. Just how ridiculous his reflexes were? He brought down his blade, that would no doubt dismember her, if not for her rolling away. Rising quickly, she swiped her hand at Stain's face, sand flying out of it. Man hissed and swung blindly at her, before backing off. She felt a slight sting. There was a small line of red at the back of her palm. She gazed at the Hero Killer, who was rubbing his eyes with the bandage of his arm. Normally she would try and pressure him, but she needed to catch her breath. All that running around and his relentless attacks were getting to her. I must say, that your abilities are truly admirable. Villain said, opening his now red eye at her. If you stay true to your declaration, then you may become a true hero. Momo quirked her brow at that. She couldn't understand what the man was talking about. But I need to continue my mission. Those two fakes, marring the name of a hero, need to be culled, he said gravely, gazing at his blade and smiling creepily to himself. I won't allow you to do it, she declared, once again taking her fighting position. She observed as Stain licked at end of the sword. And just like that her body felt some invisible pressure on it, downing her on the ground. Her staff flying off her hands. What have just happened? She struggled to do anything, but she couldn't even move her pinky. She heard his footsteps closing in. She tried to call for her quirk, but even that was somehow blocked from the use. No. She couldn't give up. She had to save them. A music began to play from above them. She was confused by this, but after a second she recognized this piece. Hello, Yaoyorozu-san. I hope that you're doing fine. Alan's voice sounded from the speaker in her glasses. The oh-so-familiar sound of the rockets, that made her heart beat faster in happiness, came closer, and with this too blast from repulsors, chasing Stain away from them. Something metallic hit the concrete and the soft hum of machinery could be heard. She felt a touch of a metal on her shoulder, before being placed against the wall in sitting position, gazing into the electric green eyes. Faceplate opened and a smiling face of Izuku Midoriya was shown to her. Mumu. Missed me? He asked joyously. There were only two thoughts in her head. 1. Hero Killer was screwed. 2. If she could move, she would kiss Izuku hard on the lips. It all happened while Izuku and Aizawa-san were stopping the mugging. Out of nowhere there was a notification that drones caught the sight of Hero Killer walking out of the portal, soon to be followed by 2 members of League of Villains. He was glad that his Enmei device proved useful for searching out and surveillance. It meant that they could offer them to other cities and help to keep the order in them. But the presence of League with Stain was worrying. Was some kind of alliance forged between the parties? If yes, then Villains gained a powerful ally. And it wasn't just in terms of Hero Killer's abilities. His fame would no doubt allure other members of Underground to come and join the group. Drone followed Stain, who left 2 League members and hunted down a hero, Native. Watching the fight through the camera feed, his theory was confirmed. Villain's quirk revolved around the blood and its consumption. The other part, the one he got made from the statements of heroes, who survived the run with man, still needed to be tested. Then the alert came, making Izuku, Aizawa-san and Nizu swear. The tracker he put in Ida-san's costume showed that the teen was closing to the Hero Killer's location. And what was worse, they couldn't really provide him a backup, due to the Nomus attack. It was his first time watching the beasts, but he was sure as hell that he didn't want to have a run with them. His current armor wouldn't handle that kind of power and versatility just yet. An idea came to him, but he pushed it back for now. Making a quick decision, Izuku and Aizawa-san took into the skies and flew towards Hosu. Their ETA was around 10 minutes at the maximum speed possible for Night Raven. That didn't sit well with him. Ida-san engaged Stain in combat, but the outcome was obvious. Then Alan told him that Momo was closing to Ali. His heart squeezed and panic overloaded his brain. He was sure that his precious friend could stall a bit of time, but she wouldn't be able to take down Hero Killer. And if the man decided to kill her? Redirecting all power to thrusters, he speed up, breaking the sound barrier, leaving Aizawa-san behind. He hoped that the man would understand. He watched the fight, his mind allowed a bit of comfort to wash over him. Momo was holding out her own against the Stain. Barely, but she did. Her idea with blinding Hero Killer with sand was truly ingenious, as it would keep his vision blurry for longer period of time than a flashbang could. He peeked at the screen, ETA less than a minute. Allow me to prepare a stage for you, sir. Alan said smugly. He raised his eyebrow at this, but soon heard the Shoot to Thrill playing from his earpiece. That caused him to smirk. It wasn't really a time for things like that, but whatever. Let the AI have it fun. Izuku saw them, Stain looking around, stupefied by what was going on, Ida-san and Native not faring better. As for Momo, she recognized the song and smiled. Swooping down the skies, he released a blast from his repulsors, chasing Hero Killer away, further into the alley. Landing on the concrete, he immediately turned to his friend and placed her against the wall. Putting on his best smile and opening his face mask, he asked happily. Mumu. Missed me? The joyous expression settled on her face. What took you so long? She questioned in playful manner. Shrugging lightly, he stood up and gazed at Stain, who was watching him warily. Oh, you know. Air traffic and such. Plus terrible sense of direction. Alan's voice came from the speakers in the drones. Did his beloved AI just scoffed at him? You're my GPS, so if anything it's your fault. Izuku replied, peeking at Native and Ida-san. Who are you? Stain asked, while preparing for the attack. Iron Man, he answered with small amount of pride. You know, I speed all the way from Muzutafu here to stop you. Hero Killer hummed in interest. Man's eyes narrowed slightly. Aren't you the kid who won the sports festival? Snapping his mask down and getting his repulsors ready, he answered. Maybe. But what's more important, I think that you should give up. Stain took a step forward, the aura he gave out was truly intimidating. And why is that? Not taking his eyes away from the villain, he asked his friend. Momo, what's your blood type? She was surprised by it. Why do you ask? He was pleased with the grimace passing Stain's features. The duration of your quirk depends from the blood type of the person, right? And if my data is correct, then A is one of the shortest one, when the paralyzes last. Hero Killer let out a laugh and grinned widely. Correct, kid. Now, what do you intend to do with this? Stall you long enough for others to get up. Then we're going to catch you. You'll answer for your crimes, Stain. Izuku stated with confidence. Try it, boy, he shouted, throwing knife at him. Shooting it down with blast, he saw Villain running at him. Activating his thrusters, he flew at the man. When he was close, he aimed a punch at the Stain, but it was easily sidestepped. Hero Killer swung his katana at his arm, but it bounded off. However, the power of the blow was enough to stagger him, which ended with taking a kick to his stomach. Twisting his palm around and opening it, Izuku blasted Stain on the shoulder, pushing the man away. Locking on his target, a bola shoot out. Unfortunately, Villain jumped over it, showcasing his ridiculous reaction time. Blade came down, directly at his head. Thinking quickly, he grabbed the sword in his left hand and punched Villain on the jaw. Stain decided to cut his losses and jump back, leaving a weapon in Izuku's grasp. Not wanting the Hero Killer to get it back, he snapped it and threw it far behind him. You can fight. Villain commented, pulling out one of his knives. But do you think you could do the same without that armor of yours? Man asked gravely. You think I'm going to get out of it and let you cut me to pieces? Izuku asked with slight mockery. I'm quirkless kid, who wants to become a hero. I won't allow my career to end by the hands of some crazy crusader. He peeked at Momo and saw her slowly rising up. What drives you to stand along others in this noble profession? Hero Killer asked, carefully stepping closer. Many things, but mostly I want to prove to everyone that you don't need a quirk to help people, he answered truthfully, stalling as long as he could. His friend stood right next to him, a staff in her hand. She sent him a small smile. Enough. Why do you keep fighting? This is my revenge. Ida-san shouted, rising up on shaky legs. Revenge? Since when does the hero follow such a selfish thing? Izuku questioned in slight anger. Ingenium would be disappointed in you, he spat out those words. I agree with Izuku. We, heroes, shouldn't let emotions cloud our judgment. Momo added, determined expression present of her face. Great. You both have proven that you're clear from the corruption. Stain exclaimed, rushing at them. Knives tore through the air, one directed at him, other at his friend. Running ahead, he took them against his chest, blades falling harmlessly on the ground. Hero Killer jumped up, using windowsills to run along the wall of the building. Villain dove down, throwing his weapon at Ida-san, but Momo blocked it. Stain tried to deliver a kick to her, but Izuku flew at him, crashing them against the wall. Man first headbutted him, then delivered a strong punch, what caused him to lose a grip. Hero Killer used it to push him further away with powerful kick. Peeking at the villain, he saw him dodging swipes from the girl. With a well-timed leg sweep, he downed her and ran at Ida-san, who still had trouble with his balance. Izuku fired a blast at Stain, that caused Villain to fall. But Villain used it as a chance to roll, gaining the distance. Deciding to use a new baby, he aimed and locked onto the man's back. Fire shockbug, he commended. A part on his shoulder opened and a small disc shoot out, hitting perfectly on its target. Stain let out a pain scream as electricity coursed through his body, making him fall on the ground. Taking a chance, Ida-san straddled the villain. Izuku let out a breath, thinking that it was over. He had to admit, Stain was very tenacious and his blows were deadly. Add his quirk to the mix and no wonder that every hero who was hunted by the man didn't stand a chance. Momo ran up to her classmate with handcuffs popping out from her hand. But just before she could cuff the villain, Hero Killer rose his head, his tongue darted out from his mouth, licking the wound on Teen's shoulder. Ida-san's body went rigid. Watch out! Izuku screamed loudly, trying to warn his friend. She was at the line of the shot, so he couldn't fire out a blast. Stain sprung back up, a hidden blade showing out from his wristbands. Man swung it at the startled girl, making a cut along her leg. Avoiding a wild swipe from the staff, Villain licked the blood from the knife, causing Momo to fall on her knees. Izuku flew at them, but at the last second, Hero Killer jumped back, taking both teens with him. Before he could rash one more time, Stain pointed two blades at his hostages, the terrifying aura intensified, becoming absolutely overwhelming. Stay back! Villain shouted. Or this too are going to die. Keep your hands down. Man ordered, not taking any chances. He had to force his hands from rising up. His teeth gritted tightly. Why did it had to go this way? Don't even think about using other gadgets. Unless you want to try yourself against my reflexes. Stain warned him in grave voice. Let them be. Even if you hurt them, you won't be able to escape. My drones will follow you. Izuku tried to reason with Man. He couldn't allow villain to kill the teens. Especially Momo. It felt bad to think of her as more important than Ida-san, but his emotions were getting to him. Let those fakes come after me. More will be culled. They're going to make a fine offering to the society. Hero Killer stated, slowly rising his arms up. And what great it will do. People are already scared of you. Heroes are starting to hunt you. Even if you somehow escape, you won't last long, he countered, trying to stall as long as he could. Someone needs to be dyed in blood. The title of a hero is given away left and right to anyone with strong quirk. Most of the heroes are out there just for the money and fame. They make me sick. Stain spat out those words in anger. He peeked at Momo. Even if the girl has a right heart, I'll not hesitate to sacrifice her to continue my mission. Wrath boiled inside his chest. An image of the girl's body impaled by the villain's weapon flashed before his eyes. Don't. Izuku pleaded loudly. Stain smiled wickedly. Let's test something. Prove to me that you're a worthy person. Choose, Iron Man. Whom will be saved? A fake or a hero? Time seemed to slow down as Hero Killer's arm begun descending. Izuku's mind served him possible options, but any gadget wouldn't deploy fast enough and he couldn't aim quickly with repulsor from his hand. His eyes glanced at Momo. She had terrified expression and her gaze was a mix of fear, plead for help and regret. In a heartbeat, he tensed his chest, a scream of anguish escaping from his mouth. He felt a push of a powerful repulsor blast from his chest piece against his body. He kept it for a few seconds, that seemed to extend to hours. Cutting out the power, he gazed at the Hero Killer. His expression turned into the one of horror, when he saw a big, smoking hole, right in the middle of Man's chest. One could see a cracked wall through it. Opening his face mask, he tried to formulate any sentence. Even a simple word would do, but his mind was blank and throat tight. Knives had escaped Stain's grasp, landing harmlessly on the ground. Hero Killer coughed up a blood and smiled softly at Izuku. At last, a true hero does what's needed to be done. Man whispered loudly, before his body fell limply on the concrete. His knees gave under his weight. He just killed a human. Human, who did many horrible things to others and shook the society, but human nonetheless. Something rose up from his stomach and a vomit escaped through his lips. His mind ran at the light speed, all kind of thought plunging it. Was he considered a criminal now? Would he go to jail? Was his hero career over, even before it could begin? What would his mom say, learning that he killed a man? What about Mei and Momo? Were they going to hate him? Fear him? He couldn't bear it. Someone grabbed him by the shoulders and forced him to look up. Midnight's face showed before his eyes. She was saying something to him, but he couldn't hear her. His head felt light. Woman turned around for a second. Soon Ida-san came to them and helped Heroine with rising him up. Teens supported him as they walked toward the alley entrance. Momo popped up before him, a fretful expression on her features as she talked to him. But his ears were deaf to her words. More heroes came, normally he would recognize them, but only a flaming beard of endeavor was familiar to him right now. Before any conversation could even begin, they snapped their gazes up. Forcing his head, he saw a weird creature flying through the sky. Out of nowhere it was driven down against the asphalt. A familiar set of wings flashed to him. Ida-san and Momo took him at the side, making him his on the pavement. His mind was occupied with terrible thoughts. He felt his helmet being pulled away and something soft touch his face gently. He peeked at the girl, who was kneeling before him, tears streaming down from her onyx eyes. "Izuku," she whispered in barely audible voice. "Are you all right?" No, he wasn't. The feeling of horror and dread were still present. Moving his arms, he pulled his friend into a tight embrace, burying his head into her hair. "Midoriya-san," Ida-san said, catching his attention. I'm so sorry. If I wasn't so blinded by my rage. Teen tried to talk, but couldn't. Boy just wept loudly. Aizawa-san came to them, a somber look on his face. Kneeling next to him, Man put his hand on his shoulder. He opened his mouth to say something, but quickly closed it, shaking his head. The look he gave Izuku was enough to understand that Eraserhead tried to comfort him. The rest was a blur to him. He was transported to the hospital via ambulance. After stepping into the room, Alan activated the emergency protocol and his armor fell onto the floor. Nurse wrapped him in the blanket and sat him on the bed. He didn't know how long he was sitting alone with the image of dying Stain as his company. Momo came in, her wounds patched up neatly. Girl immediately enveloped him in tight hug. She didn't say anything. She just sat there, petting his hair. She said to him that everything was going to be okay. He wanted to believe it, he truly did. Sometime later the door to the room opened with a bang, a panting Mei showing up in the entrance. She didn't waste any time, seemingly jumping at them, her arms sneaking around them in iron grip. Izuku tried his very best to not fall asleep. He feared that the Stain would haunt him in his dream, telling him what a monster he became. But he was tired. Not physically, but his mind just had enough. Adding that to the warmth radiating from the girls, his eyes closed. His last thought was the wish of not waking up with the handcuffs on his wrists. As always, there was a bright and dark side about the situation. Nizu liked to think that bonuses would always matter more. With the hero killer gone, the society would be at ease, heroes could take a breath and many potential and current criminals would be discouraged. Unfortunately, there was a but to that case. A serious one. A mental state of his student was at the stake. He talked with Aizawa-san earlier and scowl came almost naturally onto his features. Young Midoriya was still fresh after the accident, but he barely said a word. Even two girls, who were constantly at his side, didn't manage to squeeze a sentence out of him. Teen didn't eat and drink, young Hatsum saying that he wasn't in the mood for it. At the very least, the night was peaceful for the boy. Nizu came to the hospital first thing in the morning, meeting there with Tsuragami-san, Aizawa-san and All Might. Number 1 hero came in his skeleton form, along with his old sidekick, Sir Night-Eye, and successor, young Togata. The presence of the two surprised him a bit, but he was sure that everything would turn out good in the end. Coming into the room, he tried his best not to frown. Just one look at the boy showed just how much this was getting to him. Young Midoriya was whiter than a wall, under his eyes were huge bags and the empty look he was having. How could he not pity his student? Peeking at the girls, who were at Teen's sides, hugging him tightly, he smiled gently. At least boy wasn't alone. Young Yaoyorozu, young Hatsum, could you please leave us for a moment? We would like to talk to young Midoriya, he stated politely. There was a hesitation on their part, but finally they obeyed, leaving the room with concerned glances at the boy. They needed to play that good. They could very easily worsen Teen's already fragile state of mind. So if anything, how are you feeling, young Midoriya? Yagi-san asked, coming closer to the student. Boy in questions just kept looking at the ground, wrapping himself in the blankets, shutting himself even further from the world. Nizu wanted to facepalm. That was one of the questions you don't ask to someone who is dealing with the thoughts of taking away a life. At least not so early. He caught the sight of Aizawa-san glaring at young Togata, who no doubt was going to lighten a mood with a joke. Sighing silently, he stepped closer. Young Midoriya? There was a small movement from the student. There is someone who I would like you to meet. I'm the chief of police in Hosu, Kenji Tsuragami, woof. It's nice to meet you, although I wish that the circumstances were better, woof. Man presented himself with small bow. Teen opened his mouth a couple of times, before actually saying anything. Are you going to arrest me? Boy whispered in hoarse voice. Nizu wasn't surprised by that. It was a natural thing to ask about it. But still, the question made him feel even worse for the teen. No, he stated firmly. We came to talk to you about this whole situation. There was a shock on young Midoriya's face, look of utter disbelief sprinkled with small amount of relief. But, I've killed a man. Student commented weakly. From the testimony given by pro-hero native and two interns, Creati and Ingenium, we know that there was no other option, woof. Tsuragami-san said in reassuring tone. Teen worked his jaw for a few moments, allowing the words to sink in his mind. I see. Still, doesn't that make me a killer? He asked in grave tone. Midoriya, do you know who the killer is? Aizawa-san questioned, kneeling in front of the boy. Student just shook his head, looking at the hero. The killer is someone who takes away lives and doesn't feel remorseful for it. Now, do you feel bad for what have happened? Horrified. Even if it was to defend Momo and Ida-san. Young Midoriya begun to tear up. Eva? I've tried to think of something. To find a gadget in my S-suit, that W would help me. But there W was none, that could dedeploy fast enough. Then you're not a killer. You are a hero here, Midoriya. Aizawa-san stated seriously, catching boy off guard. I agree with Aizawa-kun. Yagi-san said, grabbing Teen's attention. In my career, there were times when killing the villain was only option to save people. All Might sounded like he was deep in his thoughts. I also have a few thugs on my account. Eraserhead added, scratching his head. During my police career, I had to shoot 2 people, woof. Tsurigami-san stated, gazing at his hands. I may have not taken away a life, but I'd put one criminal on the wheelchair for the rest of his life. Young Togata confessed, his usual smile nowhere to be seen. Nizu kept looking at his student, whose eyes roamed around the room, his jaw open. He was sure about what was going inside the boy's head. How do you get over it? Teen asked in weak voice, that just begged for help. Yagi-san wanted to answer that, but Aizawa-san beat him to it. You don't, Hiro said, shrugging. You have to embrace it and deal with it daily. Eraser gazed deep into the young Midoriya's eyes. But don't do it alone. Have people around you, who are ready to help you. It makes it easier. Teen bit his lips and furrowed his brow, thinking hard about something. Finally he lifted his head, meeting everyone's eyes and nodded, showing that he understood. That was a huge relief that washed over him. But just in case Nizu would ask Hound Dog to visit the boy and check on him. There is also another reason why we came here, he stated, nudging Police Chief to continue. Yes, woof. We still need to have your statement, but it doesn't have to be now. What's more important is agreeing on the version we're going to give to public, woof, Tsurigami-san stated, pulling out a notepad. Can we just tell that Stain was caught? Young Midoriya suggested naively, playing with his fingers. Can't do. Media somehow got the info about Hero Killer's death. Aizawa-san stated bluntly. But they don't know who did this. Yagi-san added in hurry, trying not to give student any time to go back to fretting over the situation. That they did. We've tried to give the credit to Endeavor, but he outright said no. Nizu informed, having a mixed feeling about it. Man seemed to absolutely despite the idea of covering for the teen. That and Endeavor couldn't do that kind of damage to Stain, woof. Police Chief stated, looking through the pages. The best possible thing, if you want to distance yourself from the case, is to say to media that Hero, who did this, doesn't wish to reveal his identity. Young Midoriya raised his brow at this. Would they buy it, he asked with great amount of doubt. Vultures would fuss about it, but eventually, they're going to give up. Aizawa-san reassured. I see. Then please, do it. Student said, with a small sigh. Sir Night-Eye walked closer to the boy and after gazing at him for a moment, he extended his hand. I've heard from Principal about your analytical mind. If you ever want to get more hero experience, then my agency's door are open for you. Hero stated, smiling lightly. Teen looked gratefully at the man and shook his hand. Just then, Nizu caught the passing surprise on Sir's face. He had no doubt that Hero used his quirk on the boy. He would have to ask him about the vision later. He hoped that it was a good one. May didn't know what to think. One moment she's walking back from her internship to the hotel, pleased with the progress on Puppy's new body, and on the next one she gets a call from Principal that Izuku is in hospital, because he had a run with Hero Killer. She was obvious to who this guy was, but having her boyfriend taken to the place where you went because something bad happened to you wasn't what she wanted to hear. It was a no-brainer for her, internship be damned. She immediately sprinted towards the train station and caught the bullet train to Hosu. She couldn't help images popping out in her head. Izuku hooked up to many machines, barely alive, missing a limb or two. She needed to stop watching all those cheap horror movies. She honestly thought about going to the machinist, knocking them out of cold and pushing the train to its speed limit. Just to be faster there. Contacting with Alan, she got the location of the hospital that Izuku was in. She was also told about Momo being there with her boyfriend. Great. More worries. Fine, she would tackle it all at once. But God help that Hero Killer, if her precious people were hurt. She saw the Hobo Caterpillar and Vixen in the lobby. Those two were interning Izuku and Momo, weren't they? Hero showed her way to her boyfriend's room and left her with words, try to help him. She should be offended by it. She would try. She was going to do it or her name wasn't May Hatsum. Which it was, in case someone didn't know. Shoving the door out of her way, she saw them. Momo hugging her boyfriend tightly, petting his hair, sending her a small smile. And Izuku, the way he gazed at her, with those green eyes of his, broke her heart. He looked so small, so scared. It wasn't right, it just wasn't. She ran up to them and embraced tightly. She would ask questions later, right now her boyfriend needed her. And her best friend too. Girl wasn't showing it, but Mei just knew that Momo also needed comfort. Waking up next day, with all of them entanglement with each other, brought a smile on her lips. Smile that quickly disappeared when Izuku refused to eat anything. He didn't even want to drink a water. Even she knew the importance of good meal and hydration, that is after her partner showed it to her. She and Momo tried to get him to at least take a few bites, but they gave up after 10th attempt. Instead they kept him close, squeezing his hands, playing with his hair, doing everything to show him their support. When her friend kissed Izuku on the temple, Mei found herself strangely grateful. She read on the internet that normally when other girls were all mushy-mushy with your boyfriend, you need to show them where their place was. But with Momo, she felt at ease here. Plus the funny feeling in her stomach told her to be happy for it, so she was. When Principal came with all of the other guys and asked them to leave for a moment, Mei wanted to protest. How could she leave her boyfriend, who was suffering because of some kind of talk? But she relented. She had faith that Principal wouldn't do anything to worsen Izuku's state. If he did, she hoped that he had his will written down. They stood next to the door, their backs against the wall, gazing through the window at the city. She felt Momo move closer to her and grab her hand. Peeking at the girl, she saw her in deep thoughts. Squeezing girl's palm, she waited for her to say what was on her mind. "Do you?" Her friend begun, her voice unsure. "Do you know what exactly have happened?" Shaking her head, Mei looked at the girl. "No idea. Principal called me and said that Izuku is in the hospital, after confrontation with hero killer." "I see." Momo was silent for a few moments. There was. She sighed loudly. Izuku killed Stain. If her mind was a speeding train, then it would derail. Izuku, her adorable, brilliant, handsome, fluffy-haired boyfriend killed a man. That was a bad joke. It had to be. She gazed at her friend, but the expression on girl's face showed that she was dead serious about it. Mei opened her lips a few times, before actually saying anything. "What happened?" Momo chewed on her lip for a few moments, making uncomfortable silence fall over them. "I will say only what's important," she swallowed loudly. "Me and my classmate were taken hostage by hero killer. He threatened to kill us and Izuku. Izuku used that powerful beam from Suit's chest piece. Izuku killed Stain to save us. To save me." Mei hugged girl tightly when she started crying. Was her friend born under some kind of unlucky star? Barely 3 months after the high school begun and she already had 4 close calls. But she was strangely glad that Izuku did what he did. Thanks to that Momo was safe. The thought of losing either of them was terrible and horrifying on its own. She truly hoped that now they could get at least a bit of quiet. Because if not, Mei was ready to lock the two in her room and cuddle with them. They stayed like that for a while, separating only after Principal and others went out. Grabbing girl's hand tightly, they went back to the room. Izuku sat there, still scared and broken, but at least now there was some kind of light in his eyes. She would need to keep it that way. No words were exchanged, they simply joined him on the bed, keeping each other in close embrace. That was until Momo pulled away and looked on her lap. Mei raised her brow at it. It seemed like girl wanted to tell them something, but was having second thoughts. After a moment and deep sigh, her friend gazed at them shyly. I want to tell you something. And I know that circumstances could be better, but I just want to have it out of my chest." Momo's face held a determined expression. "I love you. Both of you." Mei blinked. Her heart speed up, her stomach was firing out a fireworks, and in her mind was a chibi version of her having a victory dance. Part of her mind was telling her that it was weird, but she ignored it completely. "I don't know when it all begun." Girl continued with her confession, playing with her hands. "But for the long time I was having that strange, happy feeling inside my heart, whenever I'm close to either of you. Just recently I was aware of it. I honestly love both of you." Suddenly she looked away. "But I understand, if you don't harbor the feelings to me." Momo sounded really hurt at that thought. Before Mei could say anything, Izuku moved a bit and looked at them. "I also want to say something. For a while, I was having a swirl of emotions. Me and Mei started dating during the 2nd week of school. And I was content with it," he laughed bitterly. "I mean, why wouldn't I? Finally, after dealing with abuse for having a birth defect, there was someone who loved me just for being me, and it wasn't my mom." Her boyfriend frowned deeply. "But soon after it, I've started developing emotions to you, Momo. I knew what they meant and I was unsure of what to do. I also love both of you," he admitted, looking at his lap. It was a double win. All of them were loving each other and were already close to not be awkward. Now that she looked at it all, she saw all of those moments they'd shared together. It felt like they had been a couple for over a month by now. But why those two were behaving like it was the end of the freaking world? Time to fix it. Chuckling to herself, she grinned at them, confusing the two. You're both silly, she told them calmly. Leaning forward, she captured Momo's lips in hers. She heard the surprised squeak from her now girlfriend. It felt so different from kissing Izuku, which she supposed was a good thing. Her heart beat stronger, proving her right. There was also something fruity in that kiss, and that only made it all the better. Retracting back, she saw a red-faced girlfriend and slack-jawed boyfriend. Shooting him a look, she gestured towards the girl. What are you waiting for? It's your turn. They gazed at each other and slowly closed in. Their kiss was very shy, like they feared that they would scare each other or something. But it seemed that they enjoyed it. Especially from all the humming that was escaping from Momo's throat. When they ended and leaned back, Izuku licked his lips and peeked at their girlfriend. Peach, he whispered. You taste like a peach. She chuckled, which soon turned into the full-blown laughter. The two of them quickly joined her in this. She couldn't believe the girl. Somehow they all ended up in embracing again. Peeking at her boyfriend, she saw a huge grin on his face. Good, he was slowly, but surely going back to his usual self. Pulling slightly back, she looked at them and smiled brightly. I love you both, she said joyously. Momo kept gazing at the ceiling of her room, releasing a happy sigh from time to time. So that was how being in love and having your feelings returned felt? Honestly, she could get enough of this. How did she survive so long without that feeling? She didn't really know, but on the bright side, from now on, her life was going to be filled with this. She took her phone and checked a chat with her boyfriend and girlfriend. It was still a bit surreal for her to refer to Izuku and Mei in such manner, but she would get used to it. Checking the last messages, she once again confirmed that this wasn't some kind of dream. The three of them agreed to go on a date tomorrow. Her first official date. Not just some meeting that she had to attend to and play nicely with some snob kid who was more interested in her bosom than her persona. Needlessly to say, that she was ecstatic. The only thing that made her vexatious was Izuku and his mental state. After yesterday, when they confessed to each other, he seemed to get better, which was a real relief. But there was still a fear inside of him. She observed him carefully and saw him avoiding people's gazes, beside hers and Mei's. Every time, when Stain was mentioned, he flinched, trying to make himself as small as possible. She was going to change that. Now that she was his official girlfriend, she felt that it was her duty to support him. She would do it anyway, but now it seemed to be even more important. Besides, she missed his sunny smile. There was also another thing that she was going to do. She would follow her school's motto down to a T. She would go plus ultra and become the best heroine she could. So the situation like the one with Stain would never arise again. She nodded, confirming to herself that she wasn't joking around. Now, it was time for Momo Yaoyorozu to be a typical teenager girl and search her wardrobes for the outfit for the date, fretting over it more than she needed to. Mei never was the one to think over things. She just did them and expected the best outcome she could get. Like when she kissed Momo to prove her point, that girl was scared for nothing. She should felt bad for not realizing about her feeling toward her now girlfriend. Really, after reading so much about that dating and love stuff, she should know it by the first sight. Maybe she did, but she hadn't realized? No matter now, she had a smart and beautiful girlfriend atop of brilliant and handsome boyfriend. She felt extremely lucky. But she didn't. If anything, Mei was angry. Angry at herself. It was probably the first time that she hated being the inventor. While she was happily tinkering with new baby, her loved ones were fighting for their lives against the psychotic killer. Result? Izuku with utterly destroyed state of mind and Momo with fourth close call. What was wrong with her? She felt disgusted with herself. She remembered when her grandpa was still alive. There was one time when she asked him about killing others because of something that she had long forgotten by now. He told her that despite being a hero, he would do it if it meant saving another person. She didn't understand his words back then. Even now she had hard time wrapping her head over it. Mei released an irritated groan and scratched her head furiously. All that thinking was going to give her a massive headache. Mei? Her mom called from downstairs. You want to come and watch the video from your cousin's competition? Coming, she hoped that it would somehow ease her mind. Getting down and sitting between her parents, she watched the video from the archery tournament. Soon she saw a familiar pink-haired girl, her dear cousin, Mia. Was there some weird tradition from her mother's side of family, that all girls had names starting with M? She liked that cousin, they had similar personalities and quirks, so it was only natural. She watched the video with vague interest. Her mind still occupied with the thoughts of how heroic her boyfriend and girlfriend were. She felt somewhat saddened, that she couldn't support them at all. A somehow ridiculous passed her mind. Be a hero and protect them. It was stupid. She didn't know how to fight. What could she even possibly do? She peeked at the screen and saw Mia, pulling on an arrow, which soon was released and hit the center of the target shield. The same case was with other 4 projectiles. Mei blinked at that. She didn't know that her cousin was such a good archer. She remembered that Mia wanted to become a hero, but when she became discouraged due to some kids from her school. Shame, girl would be a badass hero, shooting down the criminals from long distances, covering for other heroes on the field? She gasped loudly, scarring her parents, not that she cared. Mei Hatsum just got the best idea in her life. Izuku laid the flowers he bought next to the gravestone. He felt a need to visit Stan. Last time he was here, was a while before sports festival, which left a bitter taste in his mouth. Stan? Sorry for not coming earlier. I was busy with school and such. He took a moment to collect his thoughts. Some things have happened. I actually won the festival, he cracked a smile. And beat the shit out of the blonde menace. He deserved it. He hurt Momo badly. Twice. Licking his lips, Izuku paused for a few moments. I've killed a man, Stan. He was a bad guy, who took lives of others, but that still doesn't justify it. But he was going to kill Momo and I just couldn't think about anything else, but using chest piece repulsor, he bit his cheek hard, still feeling regret for what he did. Oh, here's something that's not grim. Momo is my girlfriend now. Mine and Mei. And before you start comparing me to Tony, no, it's not a harem and I'm not a playboy. It's just that I love them both and they love me and each other, so, yeah. We're together now. A small smile made its way onto lips. He was overjoyed about the development. He didn't understand why they all danced around the subject for so long, but now it was over. He just hoped that he would be a good boyfriend for them. Patting the gravestone, Izuku made his way home. He was glad that his mom wasn't terrified of him after he told her about the stain. He feared that she might be frightened by him, but it was a stupid thought. One that immediately vanished when she swooped in into tight hug, crying loudly about how glad she is that he's safe. She told him that despite doing such a horrible thing, she was proud of him. Proud, because he had saved 2 people. That made him feel a bit better. Steeping inside the apartment, he heard a TV. There was some kind of statement made by a woman. While I don't know who did this, I'm glad. I'm glad that hero killer paid for his crimes. My husband was one of the heroes killed by this monster, leaving me and kids behind. So in the name of my family, and many others who lost their loved ones, I want to thank the hero who did this. Thank you for avenging the dead and please, keep guarding us. He stared at the screen, not knowing what to think. Here he was, fighting with his guilt of taking another man's life and being thanked for doing so. It left him with sour taste inside his mouth. Peeking one more time at the TV, he saw a reporter informing people about the damage that Nomus made. Right, those beasts. He was scared just by seeing them through camera feed. He remembered that Nizu told him a bit about those creatures. How could one use another human like that? Turning them into the mindless, killer machines. For what purpose? Suddenly the idea from 2 days ago came back. Making his way to his room, he sat on his chair and tuned off his computer. Alan, he said, cracking his fingers. Yes, sir? Open a new project file. Codename Nimso, he said, smiling softly to himself. It was time for Izuku Midoriya to rock. Shota laid his head on Hisashi's lap, petting the fluffiest cat in their apartment almost absent-mindedly. He thought about Midoriya. He liked the kid, especially after getting him Night Raven. Which he didn't enjoy in slightest. Nope. Nuh. It was just a good way of transportation and taking down criminals who weren't looking up. Shota wanted to frown deeply, but Hisashi's gentle petting made it really hard. He sighed, hoping that Midoriya would be able to deal with the matter. It would be a shame to lose such a promising hero before his official career begun. I'm back. Nerumi shouted, closing door loudly. Welcome back. Hisashi said happily. When she came into the room, she kissed Blonde deeply. Then she bent down to him. Hey, Shota, she smiled sweetly at him, before leaning down those last centimeters and giving him a kiss. How's Midoriya? Woman asked in worry. Don't know, he replied with a shrug. Hopefully Yaoyorozu and Hatsum can get him back on his feet. Oh, that reminds me. Narumi gave them a bright smile. I found another polyamorous relationship. She sounded really proud of herself. Shota got chills from that. This couldn't end well. And he felt that he was going to be the causality here. Seriously? Who? Hisashi questioned, excited at the news. Genius Boy, Hatsum and Momo, she exclaimed. And guess what? They're just like us. She bounced on her feet. No way. Yes way, she pulled up 3 fingers. My cute, little apprentice, Momo is similar to me. She's still rough around the edges, but she'll come by. 1 finger went down. Then there's that Hatsum girl, who's loud and positively crazy about everything like you, Zashi. Another digit was hidden. Then Nezumi pointed at him. And finally our genius boy. From what Momo told me, he's just like Shota. Minus the whole grumpy part. His mind muted the rest of the conversation that his wife and husband had. This was a disaster. For all cats in the world, who allowed 3 problem children to have relationship between themselves? Wait, girl, who could make almost anything, another girl, a mad scientist, that didn't know that safety rules are, and boy, who literally rewrote some of the laws of physics. Taking out his cell phone he picked the number and called. Vlad? Are you still looking for a drinking buddy? Shota Aizawa was going to drown himself in vodka. Momo's mind muted down the commotion in her classroom. She let out a quiet, happy sigh. Date went perfectly in her opinion. She wasn't overdressed, seeing as Izuku and Mei came in jeans and flannel shirts, while she had pink blouse, skirt and black stocking. After meeting up and sharing kisses, the duo dragged her to arcade. She never was in one, so her excitement was even greater. She didn't know how, but somehow she joined the competition that her boyfriend and girlfriend had. She didn't want to let them think that she was some kind of pushover. Their shocked faces, when her pink car passed them, just before the finish line, were priceless. Oh, and apparently she became a queen of the devious game known as DDR, at least according to them. She didn't really understand their problem. Game was easy. Just press arrows at the right moment and done. Maybe those dancing classes that her parents made her go to helped her a bit. After that they walked around the city and just talked about everything and nothing really, stopping briefly at the food court to grab a bite. The only thing dumping their date was Izuku's still fragile state of mind. He still avoided others' gazes. So to counter that, she rubbed a thumb against his hand and gave him a peck on the cheek. It seemed to the trick, easing his worries and making her glad that she had this kind of effect on him. They found a quiet park and sat on the empty bench. She was in the middle, with Mei's head laying on her lap and Izuku putting his head on her shoulder. She petted their soft hairs, making all of them smile gently. She kind of wished that they could stay like that forever, enjoying each other's company and basking in the evening light. Unfortunately they had to return to their homes. But the consolidation prize came in form of kisses. She bit her lip, remembering the feelings of their mouths against hers. Those sparks, like electricity passing through her system. Those soft hums of pleasure that escaped their throats. She couldn't get enough of it. Maybe in the future she would try some of the things that Midnight told her about. That is, after she was absolutely sure that she wouldn't die from embarrassment. Yamamo? Tsuchan said, pulling her out from her little bubble. You okay there? Momo blinked and sat up. Yes, why you ask? We've tried to get to you for a minute or two. Kyoka-chan stated, looking at her weirdly. Oh, sorry. I had something on my mind. She replied sheepishly. Excuse her, she may be a hero in training, but she was still a teenager. Hey, when Hero Killer attacked, you were there, right? Toru-chan asked, her clothes bouncing with her movement. We've asked Ida, but he won't say a word, so? Can you tell us, who killed him? It was an innocence question, one that came from pure curiosity, but it got attention of whole class. Everyone was looking at her, waiting for the reply. Sorry, but I can't tell you. Hiro, who did it, wanted us to keep it quiet. Partly true. Even if Izuku didn't want it, she wouldn't tell anyone. Imagining her boyfriend suffering from the storm of questions wasn't something that sit well with her. Shame. He must be really manly to do it, though. Kirishima-san commented, nodding to himself. She wouldn't describe it like that, but let's go with it. Something about Izuku being manly sounded right to her. Anyway, how was Midnight? Achiko-chan asked, shuddering slightly. I hope she wasn't too extreme with you. Momo smiled lightly. No, not at all. Internship with her was surprisingly good. I'm glad that I followed with Izuku's advice. Izuku? Mina-chan said, wiggling her brow and smirking teasingly at her. He's your boyfriend or something? At first there was a small panic and embarrassment, but she quickly squashed them down. Remembering one of the things that Midnight taught her, she laid her elbow on the desk and put her head on her palm. Narrowing her eyelids and adapting a small, feral smile, she answered in sultry voice. And what if he is jealous? She marveled at the bewildered faces of her friends. None of them knew that she could act like this. Neither did she, until Midnight showed her how to do it, but Heroine still claimed that she was natural at it. Maybe she was? Somehow it felt good to act this way. Before any questions could be asked, door opened and Principal came through them. A small, kind smile present as always on his face. Sit down, students, he commanded politely. After a moment he continued. I'm covering for Aizawa-san for your morning lesson, he will join you later, during your hero training. Nizu-san looked at them. Looks like everyone is here. Kirishima-san raised his hand. Principal, Bakugo is missing. Boy said in worry. Principal nodded at this. About that. Katsuki Bakugo won't be a part of 1A anymore. Murmurs rose at that. He may still have a chance to come back, but that all depends from the potential improvement in his behavior. Momo allowed herself to smile at the news. She was actually glad that Bakugo was removed from hero department. He wasn't a hero material in her eyes. If anything, he was a bully with powerful quirk and giant ego. And he hurt her adorable boyfriend. That rhetorical bucket of cold water served him right. Lesson with present Mike was weird. Man was more happy than usual, engaging them in slightly pointless conversation. That, and she had a strange feeling that from time to time he kept looking at her and smiling gratefully. She didn't know what could be a cause. Then Midnight's subject came and woman herself. She scared the shit of Momo. Heroine had a strange glow around her and a giant, goofy smile on her face that wouldn't come down no matter what. Yaoyorozu, please come and hand out class quizzes. Woman asked her, showing the stack of papers. Of course, Midnight-sensei, she replied, standing up. Heroine wiggled her finger. That's not how you're supposed to refer to me. No, she wouldn't. Would she? Momo gulped loudly, while all eyes gathered on her. But internship is over, she protested weakly. But your apprenticeship isn't. Came reply in sing-sang voice. That woman was evil, she was sure of it. And the worst part of it? She had to do it, otherwise there would be no end to it. Goodbye her dignity. Yes. Mistress, she said with red face. She tried to ignore the uproar from her classmates. Especially from Mina-chan and Mineta. She wasn't prepared to deal with this. Stupid Midnight and her dominatrix complex or something. Not wanting to answer with any questions from her class, she ran away from the class when bell rung. She was glad that it was time for lunch. Catching the sight of Izuku and Mei, she grabbed them and pulled away from the crowd, toward the support studio. She told them what had happened. Their chuckle at her misery made her slightly mad at them, but kisses and hugs quickly changed that, repairing her mood a bit. Of course it was a short-term solution, seeing as she had to ignore girls' questions and teasing, while changing into the costume. Her revenge on the woman was going to be sweet. Today's training was a rescue race on Field Gamma, a highly industrial area. Momo glanced at her classmates, noting in her head who would do great and who would have trouble with exercise. Shiro-san seemed to be the best bet for a winner. Teen already displayed his ability to maneuver with his quirk. Suddenly a sound of engines reached their ears, making them all look around. The sight they witnessed was peculiar. Aizawa-sensei, wrapped in his yellow sleeping bag, flying through skies thanks to some kind of jetpack with wings. He was almost like a butterfly. A very creepy butterfly that would haunt her in her nightmares. Man landed gracefully next to stunned All Might, wings folding into the jetpack. A hand came out from his bag and rose up his goggles. He gazed at them with usual deadpan expression. After few seconds, he pulled out a juice box and drank it all in one go, releasing a satisfied sigh at the end. After all of this, he blinked at them. What are you all staring at? Aizawa-sensei asked, like nothing weird had just happened. None of them was brave enough to ask any questions. That was a pure gold. Alan commented in awe, making her cover her mouth to not release a laugh. Izuku helped Shinso-kun to stand up, after downing the teen for, was it 20th time now, that he threw boy over his shoulder? Something like that. However, he was glad that his friend reached out to him and asked for a sparring session, saying that he wanted to better himself. How could he say no to Shinso-kun? They were very much alike in case of getting a treatment from society. That and he was his only male friend so far. Momo also joined them, saying that she wanted to practice some moves that Midnight showed her. Those moves were dirty and he didn't want to be at the receiving end of them. But seeing as there was only 3 of them, they had to rotate between themselves, so everyone could fight a bit. Then there was Mei. He was utterly surprised, when his girlfriend pulled out a bow and arrows, that she made thanks to the 3D printers running all weekend, courtesy of contacting with Alan. He observed her, trying to shot from it at the target shield from a 10 meters. When did she gain an interest in archery? So far there wasn't any good result, but Mei seemed to be strangely motivated, which made him smile. After an hour of training they made a break. Girls went out to get them some drinks. During the wait, Izuku sat there, next to Shinso-kun. He was still thinking about the whole stain incident. Especially Men's last words. Was he really a true hero? He didn't feel like one. Hey! Shinso-kun said, gaining his attention. Teen peeked shyly at him and scratched his head. I am. If there is something you want to talk about? I mean. Teen sighed loudly. We're friend, right? I know. Thanks. Izuku replied, smiling lightly. It was nice from the boy to see his discomfort and offer help. Maybe someday in the future, he could tell him what's eating him up, but not now. It was just too fresh. Good, can I ask something? Shinso-kun question timidly. You just did, he replied, chuckling slightly. Yeah, so. How is it? I mean using that suit of yours and flying around. Teen sounded really interested in it. He hummed and looked up. It's great really. Wind is whistling around you. You cut through the air at high speed. Sometimes you feel that there is like nothing in the world except you and that freedom. He answered truthfully. Must be nice. Shinso-kun commented in a dreamy tone. Peeking at the teen and smiling gently, he asked. Would you like to try someday? Before answer could came, girls returned with drinks. Glancing at his friend, Izuku saw that boy was thinking about his proposition. He really wanted to hear a positive reply soon. Peeking at Mei, he couldn't help but feel that there was something strange going on with her. He still could see the excitement that she carried in her every day, but it seemed more contained. He saw that Momo also caught up to that fact. Mei? Are you okay? He asked in concern. She looked up at him and blinked. Yeah. You've been acting a bit weird. Momo commented, frowning lightly. Have I? Their girlfriend replied, tilting her head. Maybe this has to do something with this, she mumbled loudly. This? Shinso-kun voiced their thoughts. Yup. Lately, whenever I use my quirk for longer periods of time, I get that feeling. Like I'm more in the control of my body than usual. And my mind is somehow clearer. Mei explained, pointing at her eyes. That was interesting. His brain already begun searching for the possible solutions. It wasn't unheard of that when people used their quirks for a while, that their mental state begun to change. Sometimes it was a permanent, sometimes it was temporarily. In girl's case it seemed to be a second option. Could it be that perhaps there is a change in the chemistry inside her body? Momo questioned, looking at him quizzically. He nodded slowly. It's possible. He glanced at Mei, who was roaming with her eyes between them. We could visit Recovery Girl later to confirm that. Girl though for a moment, before nodding at them. What's with the bow? You want to take up Kyudo? Shinso-kun asked, pointing at the weapon. Nope, she grinned widely. It's so I can be a hero. Izuku and Momo looked at their girlfriend with wide eyes. Mei never expressed the want to become one. Sure, her grandpa was one and normally any child said those things when they were small. But a dedicated inventor, saying out of blue that she wanted to change profession? You don't want to engineer anymore, he asked, saddened at the possibility. She shook her head furiously. I'm still making babies. She sounded rather offended at his questions. It's just, seeing what happened lately, I was pissed at myself. Her tone became somber. You two were risking your lives and I was away, sitting safely at the lab. I want to change that. But I can't really fight. So after watching my cousin's archery competition, I thought that this may be a way for me to support you too. She pointed at the bow. That and I want to make my grandpa proud of me. A huge grin showed up on her lips. A tear escaped from his eye. He was moved by her declaration. It made him utterly happy to hear that Mei wanted to risk her life to keep him and their girlfriend safe. If anyone would ever call her a bad person he would blast them with repulsors. He and Momo swooped the girl in the embrace, which she gladly returned. They kissed her cheeks and she in turn nuzzled closer to them, smiling brightly. This was the moments that Izuku really loved. Besides, it seemed to help with his guilt somewhat. So it was a win-win for him. So are you guys like an item or something? Shinso-kun asked awkwardly, with pink dusting his face. Oh, they didn't tell their friend and made him uncomfortable? Oops. Nizu looked at young Ida and sipped his tea. Teen was sitting as straight as one could and from time to time peeked at him, showing his anxiety. No need to be this tense, he said in a friendly manner. Right, of course, principal. Boy answered, although there was no change in his posture. How is your brother doing? He questioned curiously. There was a small smile that showed on student's lips. Great actually. Tomorrow doctor is going to do a first fitting of the prosthetic that Midoriya-san and Hatsum-san made. If everything goes right, then by the end of the week he's going to start a physiotherapy. Nizu was pleased with that information. That's good. Wish him luck from me. He put down his teacup. Now, young Ida, do you know why I wanted to talk with you? No, sir. Teen replied, immediately going back to his straight posture. It's about the hero killer accident, he informed, watching his boy become once again nervous. Relax, from what I've heard from Aizawa-san, you know that your actions were wrong. Nizu allowed a kind smile to appear on his lips. But I'm still going to propose you something. Would you like to go and see one of the school's psychologists? They're ready to help you with any kind of problem that may trouble you. Young Ida opened his mouth to answer, but quickly closed it. Furrowed brows suggested that he was thinking hard about it. I would like that. Boy admitted in grateful voice. I'm pleased to hear this. I'll inform them. Most likely tomorrow will be your first meeting. After Teen left, not before expressing his gratitude, Nizu looked through window. That was another student that needed help, which he would gladly offer. He was still a bit surprised when Hound Dog told him about young Todoroki. Boy reached a specialist himself, saying that he didn't want to end up his sperm donor. It lifted a weight from his shoulders that Teen realized his problems and wanted to fix them on his own. But Nizu suspected that young Midoriya's words and actions played a huge part in it. Alan, can you tell how was young Bakugo's first day in the Gen Ed? He asked, slightly worried about the matter. After reading the report from Hakamata-san, he decided that enough was enough. Threatening civilians, because Boy was in bad mood, crossed the line by a mile. You want the sugar-coated version or no? AI replied in wonder. Just the general description will be enough. He doubted that he had any strength left towards the student to listen about everything. He wasn't far from becoming little boy. Alan replied nonchalantly. That bad, huh? Well, if Teen's attitude wouldn't show betterment, then Nizu had expulsion papers almost ready. Shame, young Bakugo could become a great hero with his. Nizu caught that through and shook his head. No matter how amazing or not one's quirk was, there was no excuse to allow them to be scot-free with anything. Especially while aiming to be a hero, not to mention after becoming one. To raise your mood, I've something that you'll be glad to watch. Interested in this, Nizu went to his computer. There he was a video ready to be played with a title, From Caterpillar to Butterfly. His joyous, borderline maniacal laughter filled his office soon after a few seconds of the movie. Mei kept looking at the tablet that Izuku gave her, scanning through the wall of text and schemes. The break between lessons were coming to an end and she wasn't even close to being halfway through, yet she couldn't help but marvel at the brilliance of those babies. Of course she saw a few things that could be made better and would voice her thoughts later, but still. Her boyfriend deserved a big, juicy kiss for this. She would gladly deliver it later. Looking at Izuku she smiled widely. When do we begin? Seriously, she wanted to skip rest of the lessons and go straight to the workshop. He chuckled at her excitement. First we need to check a few things, but I think that today we may get something done. Suddenly he released a deep sigh, frowning deeply. But this may take a while. True, that amount of work with school equipment will take a year. Maybe even longer. That didn't sit well with her. She wanted those babies to be made as soon as possible. Hey, what can't we set up a factory? Company has enough money to afford one, right? Izuku sat there, mumbling under his nose for a few moments. Yeah, we have more than enough. It's just that I'm not sure if we need one right now. Mei shrugged, not taking it as a valuable argument. It's going to be useful eventually, she could bet on it. She read the rest of the file during lessons, not paying attention to what teachers were saying. She was sure that her boyfriend or girlfriend would tell her later about it, those two were such a great students. Back to the glorious babies and gushing over them. She could see a potential problem with that humongous one, especially if Izuku expected it to fly. But she believed in him and his genius. Although they would need to have their own warehouse to contain all of this stuff. She used a tablet to connect with Alan and Holatable. She needed a better bow and arrows. The one she made was only for a while. Not that she make huge progress in learning how to use that thing. She even called Mia to get tips, not wanting to develop some kind of bad habits. Her cousin was ecstatic at the news, which resulted in them spending nearly 2 hours on the phone. And when she told her that she was in relationship? Yeah, Mia was a typical teenager girl. Whatever that was supposed to mean. May hoped that she would get good at using the bow soon. Of course she could always switch to guns and grab something like a sniper rifle. But there was something appealing about that weapon that made her enjoy using it tremendously. Plus it was quiet, which she supposed was a good thing. Izuku and Momo said so, making an example of covering them from a distance and not giving out her position. Of course they made a point and told her to learn some hand-to-hand combat, in case that someone got close to her and she needed to defend herself. Which was smart, or at least sounded like that. Still though, bruises on her back and arms were annoying. She felt a tap on her shoulder and saw Izuku with his bag over his shoulder. Lunchtime, he stated, and begun to pack her things. Right. Time to see Momo. And get some food. But her girlfriend was more important than eating, no matter what anyone would try to tell her. She took her boyfriend's hand in her own. She saw that he still was troubled by what had happened last week, but he was getting better. And that put a smile on her lips. They found the girl already waiting for them at the table. Shinso was there too. However, before they could sit down, someone stood in their way. Mei scowled at the sight of Blonde Prick, who was glaring daggers at Izuku. That jerk had even audacity to snarl at him. Peeking at her boyfriend, she saw him staring back. If the fight broke out, she was willing to sacrifice favorite chocolate pudding to aid her partner. Fortunately, Rabid Dog moved away from them. Good, she didn't have to waste her tasty treat on this unworthy person. Did he say something? Momo asked, frowning slightly. Nope, he just came to glare and growl. Izuku replied, setting down his lunch. Kirishima-san said that he is more intense than ever. Seems like he's taking the transfer pretty bad. Girl told them. Serves him right. Mei commented, munching her food. How that jerk got into the hero course at the first time was beyond her. Shinso snorted loudly. Yeah, I've heard how the guy from 1D complained about that Pomeranian. Apparently he threatened all of them with his quirk and almost started class fight, he snickered. Looks like class 1D got a real dick there. Language. Momo shouted, hitting lightly their friend on the shoulder. She heard her boyfriend chuckle and smile. Good, he was really coming back to himself. Hey, Midoriya. Shinso said, massaging his arm. You remember that offer from Monday? He smiled widely. I'm willing to take it up. Mei rose her eyebrow at this. She peeked at her girlfriend, but she shook her head. Great. Come later to our lab, so we can take measurements. Izuku sounded really excited at that. Wait. Did that mean new baby? Yes, yes, yes. She wanted to make another adorable child with her boyfriend. But first. You know. She pointed her chopsticks at Shinso. You can use our names. We're friends. And it's faster. She saw her boyfriend and girlfriend nod at that and smile kindly at the boy, who looked shocked by this. His eyes roamed between them. What? It was normal, in her mind, to refer to her loved ones and friends like that. Sure. I'd like that, he admitted with a wobbly smile. Great, she pursed her lips. Although Hitoshi is longer than Shinso. She furrowed her brows thinking hard about a better way to call him. Suddenly she snapped her fingers, grinning widely. How about Toshi? Yes, that sounds cute. Please, can we call you like that? Momo pleaded with shining eyes, bouncing adorably in her seat. Toshi just nodded at them, before hiding his red face in his arm. Mei was glad that he was their friend. Momo ducked under a fist flying into her. Catching the arm she pulled, surprising her opponent, making them lose their balance. She planted a hard knee right into their stomach, causing them to cough. Using a quick palm strike, she pushed her sparring partner back, making them fall. Damn, Yamamo. When did you become so brutal? Kyoko-chan whined, massaging her stomach. Momo felt slightly bad for causing pain to her friend, but she justified it by saying it was better to suffer now than as a pro hero. Extending her hand towards the girl, she said. Sorry. Midnight trained me really well during internship. Plus Izuku is helping me. Rising up and dusting off her pants, Kyoko-chan sent her curious look. Is he really your boyfriend? I thought that he and Hatsum were a thing. Now, normally when she would reply, she would tell the truth and be done with it. But seeing her classmates' shocked faces whenever she pulled the midnight act, as someone dubbed it nicely, caused her a great joy. Maybe her mistress's feral side rubbed off on her a bit too much. Smiling mysteriously and cupping her cheek, she answered in dreamy tone. Maybe they are? I should go after them, don't you think? Kyoko-chan gazed at her weirdly and took a step back. I think that you're scarring the shit out of me. Momo chuckled slightly at her reaction. Oh, she was having so much fun doing this. That's enough for today. Go change and go home. Aizawa-sensei ordered. Oh, Yayorozu, stay for a minute. She quirked her brow at that, thinking about what her teacher wanted from her. Was it about the last complaint about noise that she had to deal with? After Bakugo left their class, and with him explosions, there was a huge drop in the loudness from her classmates. How is Midoriya? Hiro asked with a hint of worry in his voice. Question surprised her. She didn't know that a man would care about her boyfriend. Slowly getting better, she said with small smile. Aizawa-sensei nodded. Good. It would be a shame to lose someone with a great potential to be a hero. She looked at her teacher in wonder for a moment, before going to change. While doing it, they heard a loud screaming from other side of the wall. It sounded like Mineta, which meant only one disgusting thing. She released a deep breath when Kyoko-chan found a hole in wall, none of them even knew about it, and stabbed perverted boy into the eye. She hoped that it would teach teen something, but no doubt it was a wishful thinking, seeing as she was the constant object of his abuse. Momo made her way towards the infirmary. The results of May's checkup were due to be today. She went over some theories with Izuku. The one that they were almost sure involved a release of hormones that calmed a girl when she used her quirk. Coming into the office, she saw Recovery Girl with some papers, her boyfriend and girlfriend, who high-fived, and Power Loader, who kept opening his mouth like a fish. So, you're saying that all one needed to do was to give her something to shoot at while using her quirk? Hiro asked in weak voice. In a way. She could also use her quirk more and that would do the trick. Heroine replied, sorting through the papers. Power Loader took a deep breath and walked out from the office. After a few moments they heard him screaming loudly, Vlad. Turning to the rest of the occupants, she caught the sight of May launching herself at her. Before she could ask a question, her lips were captured by her girlfriend's. She gladly accepted and kissed back. You were right. Girl told her, smiling brightly. After the proper stimulation from a quirk, brain gives command to release hormones to help it deal with the change of the vision. Izuku explained, coming closer and giving her a peck on the lips. Geez, kids today. Go be mushy somewhere else. Recovery Girl told them with a small frown, chasing them off with the wave of her hand. Momo smiled at the news. She would be lying if she said that she didn't feel proud for coming up with correct theory about a quirk. All those books about quirk theory really were useful. Taking the advice, they went to the lab. There she sat on the beanbag with May on her lap, while Izuku tinkered with a sound rifle. He said that he had an idea about modifying it. She was half scared, half fascinated about what this device would do after this. Maybe she could coax her boyfriend into lending it to her for a while. She could threaten Mineta with it, to finally get some peace. It was unbecoming of a future hero, but there was a line. She was aware of the fact that her costume was revealing and left nothing to imagine. That was a sacrifice she was willing to make? But her classmates' behavior was beginning to get onto her nerves. She felt a poke on her cheek. She turned to May, who was frowning a little. What's wrong? You look like something is troubling you, she asked in concern. Releasing a sigh, she leaned into her girlfriend. Mineta is a nuisance. He keeps staring at me, more than other girls. Especially when he's behind me, she saw May cluelessly blink at her. Perverted grape. Izuku stated, making girl in recognition. Can't you I don't know, create a veil from your head, that would hide you? Girl proposed, touching her hair. Momo chuckled at the silly idea. That would be impractical. Besides, it would tangle into my hair. There was a sudden crush, which made her snap her gaze towards Izuku. Above some piece of metal was his open hand. Boy himself had a thinking expression, quietly muttering to himself. He turned to them with shining eyes. Actually would it? He said in wonder. She rose her brow, not understanding his question. He moved closer and gently grabbed her fringe. I mean, when you create something bigger with your hands or feet, the area of your nails is also used and there's none missing parts in the item. And since nails and her are built from keratin. She caught up to what he was saying. Now, that she thought about it, it made a perfect sense. She never tried it, mostly due to the wording of the doctor, who she saw, when she got her quirk. Man kept saying, skin. She should think about it earlier. Thank God for her brilliant boyfriend. Taking her hair, she wrapped her palm in them tightly. Using creation, she began to make a matryoshka with Izuku's features. The light of her quirk shone and soon doll stood, almost proudly, atop of her black hair. Moving the object away, she saw that her hair stayed the way they previously were. It worked, she exclaimed happily, but soon frowned lightly. Shame we can use it to make my costume from it. Actually we can. Her boyfriend told her with a smile. Yeah, there's a third year, whose suit have his hair in it. Something about not ending up naked, when using his quirk. We can make you a new costume. May informed her, bouncing on her lap. Without thinking, she pulled the two of them closer and kissed them simultaneously with passion. She leaned back into the bean bag, causing them to lay on her. She was so overjoyed by it. Finally she could get away from perverted gazes and potential letters, telling her about her inappropriate clothing, that could set up a bad example for children and... Suddenly a pleasure overtook her body, making her close her eyes and shudder in delight. She couldn't help but give a content sigh. She felt Izuku and Mei pet her head. She loved the way they touched her hair, reminding her of her parents, that did the same when she was a kid. She nuzzled as close as possible, craving for more caressing. Her mind went almost completely blank, but before it could, she vaguely wondered from where that purring came from. Wait, purring? She stood up instantly, covering her mouth with her hands. She turned to her boyfriend and girlfriend with red face and wide eyes. She didn't like the look of interest in their eyes. Momo, did you just purr? Izuku asked in astonishment. No, she squeaked out. She was so embarrassed. You totally did. Mei stated joyously. Girl caught her arm and pushed her towards them. Come on, one more purr. No. No more purrs, she protested loudly. She was about to stand up again, but her boyfriend's hand touched her, lightly scratching behind her ear. A new wave of pleasure washed over her, making her knees weak. Soon her girlfriend joined, giving her long, gentle strokes, adding more of this blissful feeling. She did her best to fight against it, but her body betrayed her and that accursed sound escaped her throat, making duo, ah, at her. Curse her grandmother with cat quirk and her father for passing those genes to her. She hated it with her whole being. So there she was, helplessly laying on their laps, enjoying their petting and purring like a cat from the pleasure they delivered her. I hate you, she whined weakly, trying to pout at them, but failing miserably. They chuckled at her and smiled brightly. And we love you, kitten, they said in sync. She loved them too. Them and their caressing. Not that she would ever admit it to them. Izuku watched with a huge smile on his lips as Mei jumped around a rather tall, white box, that was delivered earlier to their lab. He could share her excitement. Today was the day when Puppy would get its new body. They waited for Momo and Toshi to come, both of them wanted to see this. And while his partner already knew how it looked, he was completely unaware of what to expect. He took a moment to think about something that was dwelling in his mind all week. That thought really made him laugh. He was Iron Man, the live version of Tony Stark. Momo was like Natasha Romanoff, a beautiful, intelligent woman, who was showing the signs of becoming a master assassin, which made him be more wary about the things he said around her. Not that she would hurt him, but it was better to not make her mad. And Mei slowly, but surely was becoming the female version of Clinton Barton, sprinkled with more joy and craziness. He shivered at the thought of her being good with a bow. Maybe he could propose to her to use Hawkeye as her code name. His girls were starting to be somewhat dangerous and that left him with mixed feelings. He pitied anyone who would make them mad. He felt arms wrap around his neck and something soft press against his cheek. Turning slightly he saw his girlfriend with small smile and shining eyes. Over the course of the week, Izuku observed as Momo became more comfortable and slightly bolder with displaying her affection towards them. Not that he had anything against it. So, where's the robot? Toshi asked, quirking his brows. Here. Mei exclaimed, pointing at the box. Ha, a weird fridge. Boy commented dryly. Guys, don't banter, he pleaded with a shake of his head. Alan, is all set up? Yes, sir. Oh, and for the record, I'm not going to babysit it. I replied with a huff. I'm sure you're going to love having a sibling. Momo said with a chuckle. It isn't my brother? Powering up the unit and initializing transfer. Alan informed them. There was a soft hum from the inside of the box. Checking the parameters on the tablet, he saw that download of Puppy's system went faster than expected, but there was nothing wrong with it. Then came the calibration, setting on new directives, to avail normal movement. Process completed. Gazing at the box, he couldn't help but smile. Puppy, come to us, he called with joy. The front opened slightly, revealing a silvery white foot and part of a shin. Then it came out, showing its full glory. Izuku marveled at it, taking in the way it looked and couldn't help but compare it to second version of Iron Legion from Marvel's movie. It was almost the same. Only difference being its color, softly glowing green eyes, and a circle inside its chest, where Arc Reactor was. He reached towards May and crashed his lips into hers, showing his gratitude. She hummed and after separating grinned widely. I thought about making it similar to your armor. So you like it? Yup, he replied, eyeing Puppy. Machine was gazing around, before it looked directly at him. Father. Its voice sounded slightly childish, but somehow was soothing. Then it tilted its head to May. Mother. Girl let out a joyous shriek. Izuku. It recognizes us. I must say, the resemblance is unparalleled. Alan teased. Brother. Puppy said happily. What? I'm not. Brother. Listen here. Brother. Yes. I'm your brother. AI answered, utterly dejected. The exchange made them laugh. Izuku had a feeling that those kind of situations would happen rather often. So? What's going to do? Toshi asked, circling around Puppy. Robot followed his movement with its head. It'll help you around the workshop, right? Momo said, playing with his hair. For now. Maybe in the future we could find a new task for him, he replied. He already had something on his mind, but for now it was time to teach Puppy necessary things. You know, I'm glad that you're coming here on your own accord, kid. Shoto peeked at the hound dog and nodded lightly. They sat on the comfy chair in Hiro's office. The visit ended, but it was okay with him. At first he came here, because of what had happened during sports festival. The beat down, both physical and verbal, he received from Midoriya really made him think. Was he truly the same as the man who destroyed his family? Normally he would deny it right off the bat, but, after looking at the situation objectively, he saw, that boy was right. He was just like the Endeavor. Petty, spiteful, brutal, insecure. Shoto hated it. He hated becoming what he swore to never be. So at the start of New Week, after the festival, he came here to get help. It was hard to open up to the stranger, but Hound Dog was patient with him. Hiro didn't press on, allowing him to go on his own pace, slowly revealing what was eating him from the inside. He decided against interning with Endeavor. Instead he chose to go with Gang Orca. Man turned out to be a great teacher, who despite not having anything to do with fire, gave him good pointers on how to use his left side effectively. He also focused on improving his CQC skills. Besides that, Hiro was rather quiet and humble, which was a nice change of pace for him. The most painful thing that he revealed today was the day that his mother poured a hot water on his face. Now, Shoto wasn't angry at her, he knew that Endeavor caused this through his abuse. But he was greatly saddened by the fact that the person who truly loved him was taken away from him. His only light. Sure, his sister, Fuyumi, tried to fill this spot and he was grateful for that, but it just wasn't the same. His older brother, Natsuo, was always trying to make him laugh with his goofy jokes. And lastly Tuya. If someone asked him whose his favorite sibling was, he would no doubt say that it was Tuya. He was the oldest of them. Whenever their mother couldn't take care of them, he was put in charge and did good at the job. Tuya cared deeply about him, trying to shield him from Endeavor influence. But soon, after Mom was taken away, his oldest brother disappeared without a trace. Sometimes he wondered if Tuya was still alive. Shoto made a decision that he's going to visit his mother. He hadn't seen her for over a decade now. As Hound Dog put it, it was next step in his therapy. Psychologist had no doubt that meeting with woman would help him tremendously. He would lie if he said that he wasn't scared. Just thinking about it made him want to run as far away as possible. But he had to do it. For his mom and for himself. He would also need to find Hatsum and apologize to her. He wasn't sure if his quirk went haywire when she shocked him, but the fact remained that he could kill the girl. He felt remorseful for it and needed to say that he was sorry. In his class he heard multiple times that Yaoyorozu hung around Hatsum and Midoriya. There was even that rumor that she was dating them. Not that Shoto cared about things like that. He barely understood a concept behind friendship. Before he even realized, he was in front of his home. Time sure flies, when you think about stuff. Coming inside, he made his way toward his room. He heard voice coming from Endeavor's office, which made him quirk a brow. It was unusual for a man to be back this early. It's ready? Good. As fast as possible? Till next time, Prime Minister. Shoto didn't like the happiness in Endeavor's tone. A feeling of dread washed over him. With his rank and money, man secured many political connections. It wasn't that uncommon for politicians to come to their household to have business talk with number 2 hero. And now it involved a prime minister. Shoto didn't like it one bit. Katsuki slammed the door of his room. Stupid old hag pissed him off again. Ever since that rat principal came and had a talk with his wuss dad, things were shittier than ever. He wasn't a bully. He just put those idiots around him into their goddamn place. He was doing them a favor, showing that they weren't nothing more than pebbles or cockroaches. Especially fucking Deku. It was this bastard that took away his glory at Sport Festival. Him and that freaking tin can suit. If it wasn't for those cuffs, Katsuki would destroy shitty nerd. Quirkless freak couldn't even measure to his greatness. Him and those bitches of his. He didn't try to kill that long-haired slut. He was putting her in her place. It wasn't his fault that the freaking window was behind her. She could dodge. But she didn't, because she was weaker than him. Same case with Sports Festival. He beat her down, showing that he was stronger. Next thing on the fucking list of things that pissed him off was the transfer. How could they humiliate him like that? He was a future number 1 hero and they degraded him to sitting with those unworthy morons from Gen Ed. He still remembered as one of them made a snarky remark about it, making whole class laugh. Laugh at him. Katsuki just wanted to explode those fuckers' faces. He wasn't some kind of pathetic laughingstock, like Deku was all his life. They would all pay for it later, he would make sure of that. And lastly there was that fucking hero killer. He wasn't mad that he bastard was dead. But what truly pissed him off about it was that he knew who was the hero who did that. He wasn't blind. After finding out a picture of fucker's body, showing that freaking hole in his chest, Katsuki immediately recognized the burns around it. They looked the same as the one he had on his back, courtesy of Quirkless Freak. Even freaking, useless heroine with her healing quirk could do shit about it, making it scar. He couldn't wrap his head around the idea of little, pathetic Deku being called a hero. Nerd wasn't a hero. He was just a wuss with a toy. Having enough of this, Katsuki dropped onto his bed, trying to fall asleep. He turned around constantly, trying to find comfortable position to rest, but those goddamn thoughts were non-stop swirling in his mind. Finally, after who knows how long, he succeeded. He was dreaming, which wasn't normal, but that was okay with him. He was back into the festival, standing proudly on the arena, hearing people cheer for him. Gazing ahead of him, he saw Deku and his fucking toy, cradling that long-haired bitch in his arms. Her face was all swollen and bloody after the beatdown he unleashed upon her. Then shitty nerd put the slut down and stood up. But there was something wrong. The posture and those green eyes, all about this bastard screamed menacing and dangerous. But Katsuki didn't take a step back. If Quirkless Freak wanted to fight, then he would gladly do it, showing who was the true winner. You are nothing more than villain. Deku told him in the voice that could freeze one's blood. Before he could ask a question, what nerd meant by that, there was a sudden flash of light and something scorching hot hit him on his chest, but it didn't make him fall. Peeking down he saw a huge hole right in the center of his chest. Katsuki woke up abruptly, gasping for air. His hand darted to his torso, patting it. There was no hole. He was all sweaty and his bed sheet were wet. He just realized that he, Katsuki Bakugo, was scared and literally pissed himself from fear. Mei was excited about today. And it wasn't about it being a weekend, meaning the ability to make babies all day long. No, the reason for her ecstasy was different. Izuku and Momo proposed that it was time to meet with everyone's parents. At first she didn't really get it, but in her head it meant spending more time with the two of them, which always was good. So the plan was made. During Saturday they would see her family, hang out a bit and then go to Izuku's place. On Sunday they would go on a date, ending it at Momo's. Right now she was leading her boyfriend and girlfriend to her home. She lived in a rather peaceful neighborhood that was near a huge mall and commercial area on the suburbs. While walking, she showed them a small park where she tested some of her first babies. She still didn't understand why she was banned from entering it. It wasn't her fault that one particular baby kept exploding. Her house was a one-story building with a simple shape and garage. There was an attic that her parents renovated to make rooms for all of them. Unfortunately, there was no garden or some kind of courtyard to test babies, but it was okay now, seeing as she had the UAS facility to do it. Inside was decorated nicely, at least that was what Mom said. Woman was the interior designer, so she had to know. Sitting them in the living room, that held a lot of family pictures on the walls, May called her parents. It was finally the time. First Dad came. He was tall and had broad shoulders. He had that weird thing for keeping his mustache growing as long as he could, before Mom got mad at him and shaved the whole thing off herself. Then Mom arrived with a tray of snack and teas. The two of them were somewhat similar in body shape. They were small, had large chest and amber eyes. Actually, now that she thought of it, the only thing she got from her dad was the pink color of hair. Genetics were weird. She peeked at her lovers. They were slightly tense, but kept smiling. Glancing at Dad, she saw him making that silly, strict face that never worked. Especially with that ridiculous mustache of his. "May, can you introduce your friends to us?" Mom asked politely. Grabbing their hands, she grinned widely. "Those are Momo and Izuku. My girlfriend and boyfriend." There was a silence, which was strange. In her home things weren't really quiet. Someone always did something. Dad sighed loudly and looked at her with weird expression. "Honey, I'm glad that you're trying to keep our hopes high, but really? Making androids to show us that you won't be alone," he said, somewhat saddened. And that was really weird, seeing as he was a jokester. Mom hit him hard on the shoulder. "Dear." Suddenly there was a loud laughter from Dad. "Sorry, I just couldn't let this opportunity to pass," he stated, before cackling some more, dragging Mom into it. Are they always like that?" Momo whispered, visibly troubled by the situation. "Yeah, it's normal here," she replied with a shrug. "Well, at least now we know why May is so optimistic about everything," Izuku said quietly with a chuckle. She quirked her brow at that, not knowing what he meant by this. Her girlfriend nodded at his words. Whatever they had on their minds must meant something good, so she just smiled at them. "I'm sorry for my husband. Don't mind him," Mom said, smiling apologetically at them. "My name is Mieko and this clown over here is Daisher." "It's a pleasure to meet you," Momo said, bowing her head lightly. "Yes, we're glad to be here," Izuku stated, mirroring the bow. After that her parents started to ask some questions that, according to internet, were basic on those types of occasion. Things like, how they met, how long they were together, some plans for future and so on. Then Mom took out, seemingly from nowhere, an album with baby pictures. What followed after this was nearly an hour of her parents telling stories about her childhood adventures and her boyfriend and girlfriend making ooh and ah at her as a kid. May didn't understood why they were doing it, but seeing her family and her lovers interact like that was a good sign in her mind. "Still, I didn't know that you have a brother," Momo said, pointing at the picture of her and older boy tinkering with an engine. "I didn't say anything," she was a bit surprised by that fact. "Nope," Izuku commented, before taking his cup of tea. "While we're at it," Dad begun, a smirk on his lips and glint in the eye. "How many babies are you planning to have?" Her boyfriend coughed violently, choking on his drink. His face was all red. Peeking at Momo, she saw the girl in similar state, touching her cheeks and mumbling about not being ready. "But we already have babies," May said with furrowed brows. She already had babies with Izuku and about to make one with Momo. All of their inventions were their precious, beautiful children. Mom chuckled with amused smile on her lips. "I agree with my husband. Seeing as our son is a lost cause in relations with girls." Then she gazed at her. "And what we mean are real babies. From flesh and blood." She felt her face heat up, matching the state her lovers were in. Real babies, they're real kids. Up until now, she never thought about it. Even after reading about it on the internet, she never considered that in the future they would have children on their own. Not only their inventions. For the rest of the day she wondered if her kids would have fluffy, pink hair and green eyes. The visit in Hatsum household went well in Izuku's humble opinion. May's parents were easygoing, bright and caring. He could easily see all those traits in his girlfriend. As for the kids' talk, he was sure that they would connect well on that matter with his mom. But now he was dreading about the meeting with his parent. Knowing Mom, it could involve a lot of tears. Like literal gallons of it. Just before entering their flat, he looked at May and Momo, giving them an uneasy smile. Fair warning. My mom tends to be really emotional. His comment made them quirk their brows with quizzical expressions on their faces. They would have to see for themselves. Opening the doors and letting them coming first, as a gentleman he was, he called. Mom, I'm back. And I brought guests. Guests? You didn't tell me anything about it. He didn't. He wanted it to be surprise. Mom came and stood in the corridor, gazing at them. He saw her eyes light up at his companions. Smiling widely, he took girls' hands and lifted them up. Mom, those are Mei Hatsum and Momo Yayorozu. My girlfriends. At first there was a silence, that meant Mom getting over a shock and wrapping her head around the bomb that he just dropped at her. But after a few seconds tears of joy flowed from her eyes freely. My baby is growing up. Mom exclaimed in joy. What followed was them watching as she fretted over not being dressed for the occasion, not having a prepared meal or cake, their flat not being clean enough and so on. It was somehow amusing to watch. He left them in the living room as he went to prepare drinks and snacks. Coming with the tray, he saw something that would no doubt left him utterly embarrassed. Mom was showing his baby pictures. How? How did she found those albums? He made sure to hide them yesterday to not allow the situation to happen. Did Alan betray him yet again? There was one particular picture that made girls stop. Him as a 3 years old, dressed in all-white onesie with a hood on, smiling brightly at the camera. His girlfriends were somehow enchanted by it. Cute. Momo whispered, her cheeks dusted with pink. Bunny. May commented with shining eyes. Putting down the drinks, he snatched the album. Much to the chagrin of the girls, he sent Mom an annoyed look. She just smiled at him innocently, most likely enjoying his misery. They sat in silence for a few moments, before Momo said. I can't help but ask. Why aren't you asking us about anything, Midoriya-san? Mom smiled kindly at them. You can call me Inko. As for why? Izuku told me much about you too. He did, they asked in sync. Yes. Almost ever since he started high school, every day when he comes home, he tells me about what the three of you did. Then she gazed at him with slight annoyance. But what he didn't inform me was the fact that you three were dating. I just wanted to surprise you, he replied weakly, scratching his cheek. Hey, Izuku? Where is your dad? Mei asked in curiosity. He frowned a little. His dad was sort of a sour subject for him. He's away. He's working as a delegate between companies in USA and China. Mom explained in slightly somber tone. China? Momo questioned, gazing at Mom. Yes, Hisashi is Chinese so he knows language well, which proved to be beneficial for getting a promotion. I guess he's rarely at home? Mei questioned, touching his hand. Yeah, last time he was here 2 years ago. Not even for a week, he said with small scowl. It may seem heartless, but he didn't care much for a man who was absent in his life since he was 4. It was more about his mom, who was saddened by the lack of her husband. Now, enough about it. Mom told them, waving her hand. Actually there is something that I want to ask you. Alarms rung inside his head. He knew that happy, dreamy tone Mom just used. He knew it too well. He needed to save the day and not let her. When can I expect grandchildren? His girlfriends adopted probably a new shade of red. He groaned loudly, throwing his head back. God really must hate him. Momo was overjoyed. Their date consisted of going to cinema to see a movie that all of them were interested in, and then a walk around the small carnival that came to the Musudafu. Now they were nearing her home and she could say that she was getting slightly nervous. While she was sure that Izuku was now loaded, her living conditions were the most luxurious among the three of them. Not that the homes of her boyfriend and girlfriend were bad. She admitted in her mind that Mei's parents were just like she imagined them to be. Hatsum family was a lively bunch of people. As for Inko-san, she could see the similarities between the woman and her boyfriend. Not only in their looks, but in the characters. Although now she was sure that Izuku was mixed. He never looked like full-blooded Japanese to her, not that it was a problem for her. She stopped next to the intercom and punched a code to open the gates to her home. Turning around, she witnessed her lovers gazing blankly at the building and its surroundings. What's wrong? She asked, slightly scared of potential answer. Izuku looked at her and gave weak chuckle. Momo, sweetie, I think we need to redefine your word for house, as it's not correct at all. Mei nodded dumbly, still taking the sights. She didn't understood them. Sure, her house was a giant mansion that had a huge courtyard and lovely garden, but it was normal to her. Maybe this had something to do with being filthy rich, as her classmates put it. Dragging them inside and navigating to the living room, they were greeted by her parents. She told them earlier that she would come with guests. And seeing as they wanted to meet Izuku earlier, this was a perfect opportunity to surprise them. It was often said that she was a carbon copy of her mother. She had hard time disagreeing with it. She was as tall as her, had the same figure, even similar voices. Only difference was with their eyes, that she got from her father. As for the father, he was a tall and lean, with some cat features, such as having longer canines and sharper nails. Sometimes even his behavior was the one of that animal. Taking naps during the day and wanting to be pet nonstop. "Momo, who are your friends?" Mother asked. But there was something strange in her tone. Like she was expecting something. Taking hands of her lovers, she smiled lightly. "Mother, father, meet Izuku Midoriya and Mei Hatsum. My boyfriend and girlfriend." "Yes!" Mother exclaimed joyously, striking a victory pose. Then she turned to her husband, who had a sour expression. "Pay up." Her jaw went slack. This was a complete opposite of how her mother behaved. Normally in public, or while having guests, she was a prim woman, who didn't have a head in the clouds. At home she dropped the act, showing her affection and telling her that she loved her deeply. But this? Father pulled out a wallet and handed out a rather generous stack of money to Mother, who took it and hid in her pants. "Sorry for the scene. My wife is a gambler through and through. When our princess started talking about you two almost every day, she made a bet with me that Momo is polyamorous." Father explained, before grinning widely. "Also, nice to see you again, kids. How is the company?" Mei happily replied. "Hello, sir. So far so good," Izuku said with a small nod. She blinked at them. "Wait, how do you know each other?" "I've spent most of my time with them on their internship," Father answered with a shrug. Then he turned towards her boyfriend. "You don't seem surprised." Teen chuckled slightly. "I had my suspicions. After internship I checked the Miyashiro site and saw you and your wife on some of the pictures there." "Smart boy," Mother commented with smirk. After sitting down on the couch, maids delivered tea and biscuits. Right now Momo had no idea what to expect. She was sure that her parents didn't knew Izuku and Mei, but looks like she was utterly wrong. She was pleased seeing them talk normally with each other. Fortunately for her, there wasn't any album with her baby pictures or embarrassing stories from her childhood. Although she wished that her parents would stop calling her princess. She was too big for it. "Now that we've chatted a bit, we would like to ask you some questions, Izuku-san," Mother said, making her boyfriend tense a bit. "Were you the one that saved our daughter from the fall during exercise?" Father asked gravely. She was a bit surprised by this. While she herself didn't tell a thing about it, she knew that Principal called them to inform of the unpleasant incident. Now that she thought about it, her parents were pressing any charges against Bakugo, meaning that Nizu-san must have left something to himself. "Yes, sir," Izuku answered, sitting straight. "We wanted to thank you for that," Mother said with kind smile. "That and for serving justice for what happened during festival. There's another question we wanted to ask you. And we don't want to be rude, it's just human curiosity." Father explained, sounding genuine about his intentions. "We know that for the rest of your internship you've spent under a hero. Are you, by any chances, planning to become one?" Almost instantly she took his hand in hers. Mei joined her palm soon after it. She remembered that it was something akin to a taboo subject for him. Mostly due to the treatment he gained from society, which always saddened and disturbed her. He smiled at her and their girlfriend, squeezing their hands lightly, before turning to her parents. "My mom once said that my first word was hero. He said with small chuckle. "Becoming a hero is a dream of mine. And while I do lack a quirk, I have my brain that I've packed with all sorts of information. Someone made me realize that a person doesn't need one to become a hero. That my actions are more important than having a flashy superpower." His tone was serene. "I take that you're planning on using that armor of yours to become one," Mother said in knowing voice. "Yes, ma'am." She watched as her parents talked for a moment in hushed tones. She changed her position on the couch, to allow her and Mei to hug Izuku. She knew that he still had some doubts about being a hero, after what happened with Stain, so that their comfort was needed. He looked grateful for it. Suddenly her parents stopped their talk and turned to them, smiling lightly. "We've decided to support you," Mother said, making them raise their eyebrows. What we mean by that is that you have the support of our family and company. For the record, we're not doing it because you're dating our daughter. Father explained further. There was no way that she could hide her surprise and joy for their decision. I don't know what to say. Izuku whispered loudly. Mother smirked slyly, which didn't sit well with Momo. You can start by calling us Mom and Dad. You too, Mei-san. Her girlfriend nodded happily, no doubt glad that she didn't need to be formal. Her boyfriend went absolutely red on his face, mumbling something under his nose. And her? She though, that after living all those years with her mother she knew the woman well. But apparently she was greatly mistaken. After some more chatting, she accompanied her lovers to the train station. She wasn't exactly ready to kiss the two for the goodbye in front of her parents just yet. But she was glad that they liked Izuku and Mei. The thought about them being against her relationship utterly terrified her. When she came back, Father called her to come to the TV. He said that there was an announcement about the new hero law. This was a bit unusual. There weren't many changes to the existing hero laws, and a new one being made was really surprising. Nonetheless, as a future heroine, she needed to know them all. So she went to the living room and listened to the speaker. But quickly her and her parents' faces fell. Momo felt some tears escape her eyes. The news shattered her, but she feared about what it would do to her loved one. This is fucking bullshit. Nizu couldn't agree more with Aizawa-san's statement. He himself wanted to scream out to the world the injustice that had happened right under their noses. He even checked if it wasn't against the human rights, to look for solution. Isn't there some kind of the loophole? Yagi-san asked hopefully. He sighed loudly, looking at his paws. Unfortunately no. The quirkless hero ban law, while simple in its content, is foolproof. No person without a quirk can do any job related to heroics. Be it patrol or investigation. The room fell in the eerie silence. Everyone tried to digest the information to the best of their ability. Not that they could, even 3 days later after the announcement. Can't you do something, All Might? As a #1 hero you do have some political leverage. Aizawa-san suggested, massaging his forehead. Yagi-san shook his head. Against the nearly 100% government approval? Doubt it. Hiro clasped his hands together and peeked at Nizu. How is young Midoriya dealing with it? Bad, terrible, horrible. I don't think that there's a word to describe it, he said greatly saddened. If Yaoyorozu is any indication, then Midoriya must be 1,000 times worse. Aizawa-san told them, falling lifelessly on the couch. I had PE with 1D today. Bakugo seemed strangely satisfied by the events, he added with disgust. It was at the moments like those, that Nizu wished to never have a quirk and just be a simple animal. Momo couldn't really focus on the lesson. Her mind was occupied by what was going on with her beloved Izuku. He was there, but at the same time wasn't. From Mei, she knew that he did nothing during classes. 0 notes, 0 answers, nothing. He didn't talk, even to them he barely usher a greeting. During lunch breaks he just slowly dragged himself to launching station, sat against the wall and stared lifelessly at his armors. There wasn't even a twitch of a muscle. He just sat there until the school was over and went home. She and Mei tried to do something, anything really, just to make him more alive. But he didn't react to their actions. The most they got was an empty stare and hollow smile. It was so wrong. It broke their hearts. But she couldn't blame him. The government basically trampled and ripped to shreds his dream. Something he worked all his life for. What was worse, when the interviews with some heroes were made, they admitted that it was a good move, that would further guarantee the safety of people. She couldn't believe their words. She felt her own desire to be a hero slowly fade away, disgust feeling her. What truly got her ire was the reaction of her classmates. While some voiced their concerns about the law, many, shamelessly in her opinion, said that it was for the good. Someone even called quirkless people a liability on the field. Did they forgot who made most of their equipment? Did they truly didn't care for the injustice that was happening around them? From time to time she sent a somewhat hateful glance at Todoroki. It was his father's, this bastard's fault. Man didn't hide his involvement on the matter, proudly stating that he voiced his fears to the politicians and kindly asked them to set up a new law, to protect part of citizens of Japan. What a load of utter bullshit. Boy himself was very quiet and avoided commenting about the matter. He looked like he was deep in his thoughts, but Momo didn't really care for what was inside his mind. She, alongside her parents, checked that outrageous law, trying to find any sliver of hope. They didn't. She even called her uncle, who was part of the government. He didn't have a solution either, but at least she was pleased that he was on the side that opposed this tasteless joke. What made her crack a tiny smile was the reaction she saw at the forums in USA, those that were dedicated to Izuku and him being an Iron Man. She remembered how she, her lovers and Toshi made a video, showing her boyfriend suiting up and taking a small flight, then updated it on the internet. Just to please the fans. People there voiced their uproar against the situation in Japan. To show their support they planned to organize a massive protest right in front of Japanese embassy. She wasn't sure how nearly 500,000 people would fit there, but she cheered on them. If she didn't have more important matters to worry about, she would most likely go there herself. When the bell rung, she left the classroom and made her way to the support department building. She hoped that today she and Mei could bring their Izuku back to them. Mei stood next to the workbench. Before her laid a parts of the baby. It was simple really. Just take those pieces and assemble them correctly. Nothing difficult. Except now all she wanted to do was to trash the lab, just to get all those freaking emotions out of her chest. But that would mean she would have to damage her babies. Their babies. But what was the sense of it all, if Izuku wasn't here? Past those days, she stood there in the entrance to the launching station, gazing at him. Unable to do anything. She felt so pathetic. She should be there for him, but seeing him so broken, so, not Izuku, she didn't know how to proceed. From the looks of it, Momo didn't know either. Mei? Her girlfriend called, coming into the workshop. Is Izuku still there? She shook her head. He went home earlier. Great, even her voice sounded pathetic. Girl fidgeted slightly, biting her lips. Furrowed brows suggested that she was thinking really hard. Have you tried? What? She shouted, startling Momo. We've tried talking, hugging, proposing activities, but he's always silent. Tears flowed down her face. She closed the distance between them and hugged her girlfriend tightly. Sorry. She whispered, her voice cracking at the end. I shouldn't scream at you. It's just, I don't know what to do anymore. They moved on to the bean bags, embracing each other. Momo joined her in weeping. Both allowed their hearts to let out their distress. This is unfair, she stated in barely audible voice. I know. Girl replied quietly, combing through her hair. Suddenly she stood up, dragging her up. Her face out of nowhere had determined expression. Come on. We're going to Izuku's. She didn't question this. After quickly changing to her school uniform, they walked to the station and caught the train. The ride was quiet, but they didn't need to exchange words to form a plan. It was pretty vague, but for Mei it was good enough. Help their boyfriend, even if it meant not leaving his room for a year. Inko opened door for them. Woman looked exhausted and eyes were puffy, which didn't sit well with Mei. She liked Izuku's mom. Inko smiled sadly at them. He's in his room, she told them, ushering them inside. They nodded at her. And while she wasn't good with reading between lines, as people called it, she understood the secret message. Please, help my son. No worries, Mamadoria, she thought. Entering into the room, they were met with nearly absolute darkness, save for the light of the monitor. Izuku sat on the chair and watched a video of All Might. Allow me to say those words to you. You, young man, can become a hero. A splendid one at that, no doubt. So carry on with your dreams and change them into a reality. Hiro said in a proud and friendly manner. Mei blinked at this. It seemed pretty personal, like this had happened to her boyfriend. She peeked at Momo, who also was interested in video. Izuku? Her girlfriend asked in concern. He didn't move much, nor give the sign of acknowledge to their presence. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. He believed in me. Boy stated in raspy voice, that was barely hearable. He, Stan, Mom, Principal. He turned to them, showing the wrong, hollow smile that she wanted to wipe out from his face. It didn't suit him at all. And you too. You all believed in me. Sorry. Her body moved its own. She tackled him, sprawling them onto his bed, chair falling onto the floor. New wave of tears escaped from her closed eyelids. She felt Momo join them, her hiccups echoing in the room. Why? Why did he want to apologize to them? It wasn't his fault that those idiots in government didn't want him to protect Japan. How blind could they be to not see just how great of the hero he could be? But they screwed it all up. His dream, her resolve to be a hero, Momo's spirit to become one. Suddenly she sat up and rubbed eyes aggressively, getting rid of the tears. Her face had fierce expression. Screw them, she stated, maybe a tad too loudly. Screw them. If they don't want you to be a hero, then neither me or Momo will be. She gazed at them. Izuku was utterly bewildered by her words. As for their girlfriend, she rose up and nodded at her. I agree with Mei. Screw them. Girl said with a huff. If Japan doesn't want us, then we move away. USA, China, Germany, Great Britain. Anywhere in the world. Just together. She nodded vigorously at her statement. Momo was right. Anywhere in the world, as long as they were together. Because to her only that mattered. Their boyfriend gawked at them, his mouth moving like the one of the fish. Hey, are you sure? I don't want you to force. She put the finger on his lips, silencing his ridiculous speech. We're not forcing ourselves, you big dummy. Yes, Izuku. We do it because we want to. Girl said in loving tone. There were tears in his eyes. He grabbed them and pushed down, mashing all their lips together. It was a messy kiss, filled with passion and gratefulness. In her mind, this was the best kiss they ever had. I love you, he whispered, combing through their hairs. Me too. Momo replied, purring lightly. Me three. Mei said cheerfully, nuzzling as close to them as she could. He was an idiot. Correction. He was a fucking moron. Izuku was so angry at himself. That atrocious law got to him, harder than he imagined. And while he was wallowing in self-pity, he didn't see just what he was doing to those that cared for him. Sure, he had right to be mad and express it how he wanted. But to make his precious mother and girlfriends cry because they couldn't get to him? He was pissed at himself. Mei and Momo were right. Screw them. World was a big place and they could go anywhere to be a heroes. Those idiots may have banned him from being one in his motherland, but that didn't mean he still couldn't turn his dream true. After getting over their emotional high, and they make out session that somehow took place, they all agreed on the plan. Seeing as USA, while having slightly different hero laws, was more accepting towards people, they set their sights at it. So after graduating from UA, Momo wouldn't take a part in hero course ending exam. All of them would take SNHQT, aiming to utterly destroy it. While that stupid law didn't allow him to be a hero in Japan, it never said anything about becoming a hero here. He let out a chuckle that could be described as evil or malicious. He would make Japanese government and people who supported this change pay for it. Alan, here's what we're going to do. Tsukasa Toriki was a man who knew how to rise to the top. And with that knowledge he became a prime minister of Japan. He was a prideful man, one that didn't hesitate to show his power and influence. He managed to get selected twice for this position, because of it. Of course politics were dirty, everyone knew that. He learned how to play this game, becoming a player, not a pawn. He made deals that benefited him, offered his help where he could gain something. He could say that without a doubt, he was one of the biggest fishes in Japan. If not the biggest. So when Endeavor called him, offering a juicy deal, he immediately took it. Who would be stupid enough to not use the possibility to gain armored soldiers and heroes? He was sure to exploit the genius of that little kid to the end. This is a fucking mess. Tsukasa screamed into his phone. 3 weeks. 3 weeks ago he pushed that law, Endeavor wanted. To break that Midoriya's spirit. Kid wanted to be a hero using the suit he wanted. So listening to number 2 hero, they took away this possibility from him. Agents that were put to observe Midoriya reported that during first few days, he was utterly destroyed. Which was a fantastic news. They planned to come to him, offering him a contract to sell that armor, using his heroic heart, or some other bullshit, against the kid. It's not my fault. Endeavor replied with huff. I don't care. This brat revoked the fucking license for those reactors. We're losing trillions because of this. Tsukasa threw the papers of his desk. Now that son of a bitch, Minister of Energy, wants my head for it. Calm down. It's not a tragedy. Right. It's worse. Have you heard the news? Miyashiro Industries and Marvel Industries are doing a fusion and are planning to move to freaking USA. One of the most powerful companies in Japan. If they leave, our economy is going to shit. And at the top of it? Massive protests from quirkless and people with minor quirks. So do something to prevent that. I'll try to think of the way to get the suit and reactor from this brat. With that the call ended. Tsukasa fell on his chair, releasing a long, frustrated sigh. He would needed to get this train back on track. He couldn't go down to history as a prime minister who ruined his country. Sir, his aide said through intercom. You need to see this. Turn on TV on any news channel. He grabbed a remote and turned on the television. Selecting his favorite news station channel, he saw All Might in the suit, standing before the gate of UA, flanked by Principal and some hobo. Thank you all for coming today. As you are aware, I want to make a statement regarding the new law. Hiro took a moment to let his words sink in. I will keep it brief. I'm disgusted by this law. To think that such a horrendous thing would take place in Japan. And, although it pains me to say it, from now on I will not do my hero job in my homeland. I hadn't spent my life fighting injustice to allow things like that happen. This isn't the society I want to protect. This is all. Thank you for coming and listening to me. TV was broken by the remote thrown at it. Izuku watched the press conference that took place not even a minute ago. At first he was flabbergasted. When All Might came to him about a week ago, saying, "We, quirkless, need to stick together," he didn't understand what Hiro meant. He didn't even try to wrap his head around the information of Yagi-san being like him. But now, after watching the show, he joined his girlfriends and Toshi in laughing about it, while rolling around the training room. That was a pure gold. Mei said, wiping out the tears. No kidding. I'm not sure if that flaming bastard is overjoyed or pissed off by this. His friend stated, still cackling. We should check the reports for fires then. Momo added, giggling loudly. Izuku took few deep breaths before looking at the teen. You still want to go with us? Toshi glanced at him and smirked. Of course. Who knows before they add new law that says people with villainous quirk are to go to prison or some other shit. Language. Momo exclaimed, hitting the boy on his shoulder. Suddenly the door to the gym opened. Coming through them was no one other than Shoto Todoroki. He kept his gaze low, but slowly walked towards them, dragging his feet against the floor. The expression on his face was hard to read. Almost immediately they stood up. Mei hid behind him and their girlfriend. He and the girl watched Teen warily. What do you want here? Toshi asked, growling slightly at the end. Boy stopped and peeked at them. Then happened something that he never thought would happen. Todoroki got on his knees and bowed into Jiza position. He glanced at Momo, who was as surprised as he. He would never expect Son of Endeavor to lower himself like that. I came to apologize. Teen said, not moving a centimeter. To you, Mei Hatsum, for putting your life in danger during sports festival. And for not helping with your rescue, while having the power to do so. He paused for a moment. And to you, Izuku Midoriya. While I didn't know what my bastard father wanted to do, I want you to know that I don't have to do anything with it. Huh? You want us to? Hitoshi. Izuku said strongly, pausing his friend. Stand up, Todoroki. When Teen did it, he looked right into the boy's eyes. Remorse, disgust, sincerity, anger, sadness. They all swarmed and passed constantly through the features of the hero student. He turned to Mei, who was peeking with uneasiness at the teen. Do you forgive him? Girl kept looking for a few moments, before nodding quickly. He released a soft sigh. Well, I don't hold a grudge against you, if she doesn't. So for now, we're cool. Todoroki nodded, a ghost of a smile dancing on his lips. Turning around, boy trekked towards the exit. Honestly, he was surprised by that. He didn't expect Teen to come to them and apologize so officially. Maybe, just maybe, there was still hope for the boy. Hey, Todoroki, he called, making Teen stop. Smiling lightly he said. If you ever need a support item, me and Mei can make you a baby. Teen rose his brow and nodded dumbly, before leaving them. That went well. Toshi stated dryly with a huff. You think he's okay now? I think he gets the benefit of the doubt for now. Momo said, pursing her lip. That he got. Izuku mused that maybe in the future, they could befriend the teen, if he kept his thoughts on the right track. Todoroki looked like he could use a friend. Momo stayed behind in changing room on purpose. She wanted to surprise her classmates with the new costume that her boyfriend and girlfriend made for her. It was mostly Mei's work, seeing as Izuku upgraded the Creati glasses, now more akin to visor. She looked at herself in the mirror and couldn't help but marvel at the suit. While it still left nothing to image about her figure, now she was covered from the praying eyes of perverted jerks and paparazzi. It was a full-body jumpsuit that tightly hung to her body. It had 3 layers. First one was a normal material, very pleasant to touch. Next were Kevlar, the one manufactured with the use of quirks to give it desired properties, that would protect her from some strikes and weapons, and lastly a special layer, that would keep the hairs, sewed into the costume, from the atmospheric conditions. Even in the hardened soles on her feet were hairs. It was in the shade of red with black lines running at her sides. There was also a special belt, something she hoped to use in today's hero training. She didn't know just how many hours she spent looking for a person that could make her hair grow. Fortunately she had found a woman with such quirk. Ironically she was a hairdresser. After getting in touch with her and paying for a service she came and did a job. Momo felt like a Rapunzel when this was happening. Damn, girl. What's with the new look? Mina-chan asked, making all eyes turn to her. Just felt like changing few things, she replied nonchalantly with a small shrug. She caught sight of Tsuchan hitting Mineta right on his head. Serves him right. But how will you use your quirk now? Ochako-chan questioned, making a circle around her. She just smiled mysteriously at them. Woman needed to have her secrets. Maybe Midnight was really rubbing off on her, due to those extra sparring sessions her mistress made her attend to. Thought for later. As expected there was a huge mayhem of questions to All Might, due to his yesterday's statement. I stand by my words. Unless there is some kind of catastrophe, I won't do hero job in Japan. Maybe this will teach people something, he stated with conviction. Exercise was simple today. Go into the building, secure the hostage and don't get caught by the villain team. It was standard and rather boring, but it was a training, so she didn't complain. Her partner was a Shoji-san. While she wouldn't call him a close friend, Boy was quiet and polite to others, offering help when needed, which made him a nice person to be around. For enemies they had Kirishima-san and Kaminari-san. They could be problematic, especially Blonde Teen, after getting support items from her lovers. But it wasn't anything she couldn't deal with. The building turned out to be a lone warehouse. She looked for an entrance, but windows were too small for Shoji-san to go through. Do you have any ideas, Yaoyorozu-san? Teen asked, keeping one of his dupli arms with ear to the wall. Gazing at the main entrance she smirked. Do you think you can break the door open for us? A mouth grinned and Boy himself nodded. Changing his quirk back to arm, he pulled his entire right side back and with a grunt he bashed his fists against the entrance, making doors literally fly out of their hinges. Quickly going inside, they saw that magazine was pretty barren, only some crates here and there. Right in the center was a group of tied-up LMD right in the center of the warehouse. A surprised villains looking at them. That's one way to knock. Kaminari-san commented dumbly. Kirishima-san rushed forward at them, his arms already morphed due to his quirk. Tentacle met him halfway through, grabbing Teen and throwing him away. He gave her a short nod, before running after his enemy. She leveled her gaze at her opponent. She saw him pointing his shooter at her, while smirking. Love the new look, he said, trying to flirt with her. Grinning slightly, she touched her belt and pulled it out, revealing a red-black whip, made from rubber. She cracked it against a floor, making Kaminari-san wince at the sound. Thanks. Charge Bolt shoot out a pointer at her. It was fast, but not fast enough. Using her whip, she hit it in midair, making it fall on the ground with a dull thud. She sprinted at him. While she didn't want to be rude, she had to admit, that boy was. He had hard time with thinking. Especially under a pressure, much like she had earlier. Right to her assumptions, Teen panicked, and shoot out 2 more projectiles, that she easily dodged, making sure she didn't accidentally lined up for a potential discharge. Now she nearly entered a dangerous territory, that was a close combat. While Kaminari-san wasn't that bad at fighting, he wasn't expert either. But now he could easily jump at her, and activate his quirk, taking her out from the exercise. And that was what she waited for. When Boy lunged at her, she jumped to the side and hit him with her weapon, gaining a pained yell from him. Using creation she made a flashbang, already throwing it at him. Preparing for his quirk she made a sheet out of resistance material, just enough to cover herself. Flashbang went off, then she heard a crackling of electricity going around her. Making use out of her opponent's temporary blindness, she tackled him, covering completely with sheet. Creating a small canister with a sleeping gas, that may use during festival, and a mask, she opened container, taking out Kaminari-san from the exercise. Standing up, she glanced at her partner, only to witness him having Kirishima-san in sleeping hold. Villain, trashed against the tentacle's grasp, but soon his straggle stopped. Hero team wins. All Might exclaimed loudly, making her cringe a bit. Good job, Shoji-san, she said, walking to the teen. Thank you, Yaoyorozu-san. I saw a bit of your fight. You became a fierce opponent, he answered, throwing Kirishima-san over his shoulder. She smiled at the praise. All that training with Izuku, Mei, Toshi and her mistress was finally showing of the results. But she couldn't just be complacent with her achievements. She needed to push further. Come on, Yamamo. Mina-chan whined loudly, looking at her with pleading eyes. How do you do it? You don't show any skin, but still use your quirk? Momo stopped at the exit of their classroom. She was all but assaulted with that question. An idea popped out inside her head, one that would satisfy her more feral side. Turning around with raised brow, she asked innocently, "You really want to know?" All of the remaining classmates nodded vigorously at her. "It's..." She paused, dragging it as long as she could. She fought back a sly smirk that was trying to make its way on her lips. "A secret," she ended joyously and walked out. The uproar from her friends was a music to her ears, one that she enjoyed greatly. Who would have, though, that messing around with people could be so fun? Just before she left the main building, she heard a loud roar of joy that cracked the windows and made her wish that her eardrums didn't burst. "I'm going to be a daddy." Peeking around the corner, she saw a bizarre scene. Mike-sensei laid on the floor, his mouth kept shut with Aizawa-sensei's scarf. Man himself was glaring daggers at the hero, while his face could decide between staying in its usual bored expression and having a giant grin on it. Next to them stood her mistress with face redder than lobster's shell and hand on her stomach. Suddenly all their gazes snapped at her, making Trio blush heavily. I will go," she said, quickly making her way towards her boyfriend and girlfriend lab. Nizu glanced at the first-year hero teachers. All of them agreed with the reasoning for the change of the ending semester exam. It was truly needed, seeing as villains became more active lately. The USJ and run with Stain proved that students would have a difficult future. So they would use exams as a measurement stick, trying to find any gaps in their teaching and correct it. "What about Bakugo?" Snipe asked with uneasy voice. While the kid somehow calmed down, "He's still a bother in class. Hound Dog said to me that there was some progress in his therapy. For now, we will observe him further and decide later about his participation in the exam," he stated, gaining nods from the teachers. "Now, let's proceed with pairing the students." And that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please like, subscribe and support the original writer. See you in the next part.